our talk, which is catalyzing the creative culture. And I believe the power of the story is definitely the core, but sometimes exactly what you mentioned, that empowerment for the creators, knowing that there is a risk, knowing the fact that you might not actually get, an incredible show that will actually make it, but it will actually show a story that's actually powerful. So going into that idea, I know Mr. Hussein, one of your most interesting roles have been leading Ethra. And for those who are not from Saudi, it's the King Abdulaziz Center for World Culture. It's a center, you just actually explained how many incredible initiatives you create. And Ethra obviously provides a huge range of offerings, from youth programs to heritage museums, to film festivals and more. What kind of decisions making goes into planning Ethra's cultural activities?
Wow, that's a very beautiful question, especially in an audience in a room full of youth. Now, before I answer your question, allow me just for 2 minutes, to tell people the story of Ethra. Ethra, King Abdulaziz Center for World Culture, is not only a center to visit. You said to tell the story is a powerful tool, but for us, content is a very powerful tool. And Ethra is all about content. Content that was created for the youth and the family and the community to enable them to join this platform and to join the industry of culture, creativity, ideation, knowledge sharing, and other aspects as well. Now, Ethra, and a real example of that, we all remember COVID. COVID was a very sad story to all of us. During lockdown, we were challenged as a cultural center, what can we do for the community? And here comes the power of content. Everything that we offered at Ethra went into a digital. Rather than having 1 million visitors to our building, we had 1 million visitors to our platforms, learning from these sessions, be it the program for the youth, for the kids, and others as well. We did a Eid parade, and I remember that moment. The moment that we turned into one neighborhood, we thought the streets will be empty. Everyone from the window were dressing up, laughing, shouting, tearing, and it gave us the sense of community. Now, Ethra, and I hope everyone visit Ethra. Please, whenever you visit Ethra, you don't have to know me or know the team at Ethra. You will experience Ethra as is. Ethra is a cultural center, yet it's not only a museum, a library, a theater, a children's museum, a cinema. Every component of Ethra has a program that contributes to the youth. For example, if you go to the library, yes, we have 400,000 books between physical and digital, but also out of the library, we have the biggest reading competition in the region. We have 48,000 participants across the Arab world wants to participate in this reading competition. We're celebrating the top readers in December 6th in Ethra. Cinema, it's not only a cinema that actually display cultural movies, but also we produce films, and we have classes for those who want to join the industry, from youth all the way to the adult. Our theater is not only a theater that hosts cultural and global shows, but also have classes toward that. Our museum, we have Art Prize, which is the largest in the MENA region. We have residential program. It's a place that takes the Saudis to the global and the global to the Saudis. Now, going back to the meat of your question, what decision we take, at the beginning, we were focusing into bringing people to the Ethra. How many visitors we have, how many people are entering the museum, how many people are experiencing our shows, how many people are visiting the library. Since we have reached 6 million visitors, we just refreshed our KPI. Now we're talking about how can we impact the community and engage them in our program so they can go back home and create that ecosystem that impact not only the household, but also the society around them. So when we decide on having a STEM or a science, technology, engineering, math, and Formula One racing, or the World Olympic racing between Ethra and Aramco, how can we bring the kid or the youth or the adult into this program, skilling their quality, the soft and the hard as well, so they can go back and contribute to a bigger, larger, and a platform that we have here within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So the KPI shifted, and I encourage all the communities, all the companies or the cultural center to look and analyze those KPIs and the targets and the decision you're taking into not only creating so many programs, but a qualitative program that actually create a societal impact to the community and globally as well.
That is
This
incredible.
is, if I may, just very interesting because I see a parallel in our approach in media as well. When you look at like a media product, whether it's TV channel or especially if it's a streaming platform. So first you focus on numbers. You want to have more subscribers. You kind of expand. But at some point you switch your KPI to engagements, to kind of quality time. You want people to spend more time with you. You want people to spend more quality time with you. So it's kind of very interesting how these things are the same, even though they are somewhat different in the life. Yeah, really
That's
interesting.
incredible, and it's really, I think, some basic knowledge of getting the awareness, get as many people to know where you exist, then get the kind of engagement, recognition, and most importantly, which I think is the next one, is the loyalty and building the community, building the advocacy level of what you're presenting and how people feel like they own. Like somebody who's a fan of a show, they feel like they own the show.
True.
Somebody who goes to an incredible course at Ethra, they would go out and talk about it. And I know some of my friends who've done some of the programs, and they talk about it. And I think this is an incredible level of creating impact that people feel like they belong to the message and they carry it to the next. And I think this takes us to our final question to Mr. Gregory. What advice can you offer young storytellers and creatives for getting started? And how might they get their foot to the door some way in terms of getting their stories into national or international screens?
Well, I think that the first thing that I would suggest these young creators to do is to kind of check your motivation. I mean, why do you want to be on TV? Because if your motivation is like, I want to be on television, it's not necessarily the right one. Because first of all, I think that successful creators now do not necessarily need TV in terms of reach bigger audiences. If you look at the numbers of audience reach and engagement of some of the biggest creators, they often are on par or even higher than kind of TV numbers. And also probably creators have more creative freedom, like they don't get the notes from studios or from TV channel, like change this, change that. So, and also, it also needs to be kept in mind that it doesn't necessarily, the success in creative space does not necessarily guarantee success on TV. There have been several projects kind of that when creators came to television and did projects there, and they just didn't work because it's just slightly different worlds. However, it's not that I'm trying to discourage people to do that, but if your motivation is not, I want to be on TV, but it's like, I have this story and I cannot tell you through Instagram Reels. It has to be a movie, or it has to be a premium series, or it has to be an entertainment show on TV, then we're happy to help. Then we're happy to step in and, as I said, empower the creators who are ready to dream bold.
I love it. I think this reminds me of the importance of choosing the right platform. Every platform has an identity, has a character, and every creator has that motivation to show it in a way. And exactly what you said, the creators usually develop over time. They start in one format, they go to the next, and continuously go up to achieve bigger goals, and most importantly, deliver their story to the right audience in the right way, in the right format, and at the right time.
And we also constantly kind of monitoring the space. So of course we're looking at what's happening in creator space. Who are the best creators? Who we think may bring their stories to big screen. So it's like we're watching the space.
Yeah. Amazing.
That's why we did the collaboration with Discovery. They took Ethra as a creation, and there's a great movie called The Great Build by Discovery. It talks about the story of building Ethra. I encourage everyone to watch it as well.
That's amazing. I will watch it for sure. Our final question, Mr. Hussein. How would you encourage young people to engage with telling their own stories on both national and international stage?
This is, I have a daughter who's 13 years old, and I always remind myself that the platform that they have right now is totally different than my generation. And the youth within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is the majority of the population, they are not only telling their story, but they are creating stories as well. We are here in Riyadh creating a story. I'm sure another community is creating another story in Jeddah and in Sharqiya and all the cities as well. One, for the youth, create an impactful story. And this is how you can tell your story. Engage with the right community. engage with the right platforms, not necessarily the perfect platform, because if you wait for the perfect moment, you will not be able to tell your story. The right platform, the right time, the right moment, a very impactful story, not only a content that or I want to be on a platform, I want to be on a stage. What story, what value you as a young individual contributing not only to your family but to the society is things that you need to check so you can be able to tell the story. Once you have that story, the platforms will be open for you. So I encourage everyone to think of that story. That's from the youth perspective, but also from the companies, the societies, the cultural centers, is to create that platform, allowing the youth to do. It doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be massive. Again, the right opportunity, the small amount, building on it will actually create that greater impact that we are all as companies and also as the youth society are looking for.
I can't agree more. I think we're at a time where the technology is no longer the barrier. The story is what you really have to craft the most. If the story is powerful, if you have the guts to go and tell it in the most authentic way, in the right platform where you know the audience are thirsty to hear it, and most importantly, find the right platforms, whether you're building a community or you're creating a show, that can catalyze and help you and even fast track the build of your show or the telling of your story for the right audience. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, our incredible speakers, for your experience. And please go and tell your story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amir, Gregory, and Hussein for that inspiring dive into creativity and storytelling in the digital age. Up next, I'm actually very excited for this one. We're honored to welcome a true master of storytelling, Matthew Lunn. For over 30 years, Matthew has shaped some of the most loved stories in Hollywood, from The Simpsons to Toy Story. He is about to share with us how stories can fuel creativity in ways you may not be aware of. He's also got some practical tips for adding poise, panache, and purpose to your own writing efforts. Matthew has made a career bridging the worlds of creative arts and technology. This keynote for the arts and culture pillar is a call to all young people here to become the authors of their own journey. For drawing upon yourself, please join me in welcoming Matthew Lunn on stage.
Okay, so has anybody seen Toy Story? Anybody? All right, whew, good. How about Finding Nemo? Ratatouille? All right, good. So these are some of the films that I have worked on for over 30 years. Because believe it or not, this weekend, Toy Story would have come out 30 years ago. I know, crazy. But you know, usually when I'm introducing myself to people, I don't go through all of the films I've worked on. I simply tell them that my job is to make people cry. That's it. Because if you've seen a Toy Story movie or a Pixar movie, you know you're going to cry at least once on your movie date, in front of your kids, your friends. This is my job, to make stories that make people cry, laugh, and feel something. Now, my story begins in a not-so-normal place. It begins in a toy store, because when I was born, my parents owned 8 toy stores in the San Francisco Bay Area. And when your family owns 8 toy stores, you are the most loved and hated kid growing up, because all of my friends either hated me or wanted to play with all my toys. But everybody in my family has been working in the toy store. From my parents, to my grandparents, to my great-grandparents, to even my great-great-grandfather, Charlie. Well, actually, Charlie didn't work in the toy stores. He hated kids and toys, I forgot. He owned a cigar shop in San Francisco. But everybody else in my family has been in the toy business. My dad, holding the Slinky, he retired this year, but he worked in the toy stores his entire life. And behind him is his father, my grandfather, toy stores. But my dad's dream was not to take over the toy stores. He wanted to work for Walt Disney and be an artist. And so when I came along, my dad saw me do a drawing when I was 3 years old, this one, and it was a drawing of my dad. My dad had a stomach ache, and I wanted to make him feel better, and you can see the swirls in the middle there. And when he saw this drawing, he said, "You are the chosen one. You will go work for Walt Disney Studios, and I don't care if you do well in school or play sports. I just want you to draw cartoons all the time." So it was because of my dad that I ended up getting into the animation business. I love to draw cartoons, and at 19 years old, believe it or not, I got hired to work on The Simpsons, on the 3rd season of The Simpsons, which is the best season. And I was the youngest, and am still the youngest animator to have ever worked on The Simpsons. It was so long ago, there was no internet when we were working on this season. And I was drawing on paper, animating The Simpsons, just like they did on the old Disney movies. But while I was animating on The Simpsons in Hollywood, I stumbled into the story room. And it was here that I realized that what made the show so popular and so good was the script. And I wondered, how do they do this? How do they write such good episodes that make people laugh, cry, and feel something? And it was here that I realized there is a real technique to writing stories, to creating a narrative that makes people feel something. And I was going to stay at The Simpsons, but then I got a call from a not-so-known studio at the time. It was Pixar, before they made Toy Story. And they knew me because some of the people at Pixar went to college with me, and they knew that my family owned toy stores, and they wanted to pitch me an idea for a movie that was all about toys. And yes, that was Toy Story. And the person who pitched me the idea was the owner of Pixar, Steve Jobs. So when I was 21 years old, I went to Pixar, got into a room with 4 people, Steve Jobs, the director of the film, the writer and head of animation, and they pitched me this idea for a world of toys that come to life when people are not around. And the 2 characters, an old-fashioned cowboy doll and a futuristic spaceman that hate each other, end up becoming lost toys, have to work together to get back to their owner. I was so moved by that story pitch that I did not return to The Simpsons, which was the most popular show on TV, because that story pitch inspired me so much. And also, Steve Jobs said to me, "We're not going to just create one film here at Pixar. We're going to create films for decades." He said, "Not like The Simpsons. They've got maybe 2 more seasons and they're off the air." And if anybody knows, The Simpsons is the longest running TV show of all time now, right? So I took the job and I animated on Toy Story, and that was the first CG animated film ever made. And I was one of the first 12 animators to work on that film. But what really interested me on Toy Story was how the story was getting written. And in between animating, I would always sneak into the story department to help with the writing of the script, coming up with the jokes, and learning how to make people really cry and feel something. Because when Toy Story came out 30 years ago, it was a film most people thought was going to not work, because who wants to watch a film animated on a computer? Well, it ended up being the highest grossing movie of the year in 1995. It beat out every animated film, it beat out every live action movie around the whole world. And we got to make more movies. And I was fortunate enough to get pulled into the story department as one of the writers, as one of the storytellers for the next 20 years, working on those movies that hopefully have made you cry and laugh and have really impacted you. And you know, whether it's a Pixar film, whether it's a Simpson episode, or whether it's a big company or a small family toy store, whoever tells the best story wins, again and again. And it really comes down to the fact that stories make information memorable. When you're watching a movie, if it's all plot points with no heart, you turn it off. If you're giving a pitch, a presentation, and there's no story, people turn you off and they stop listening. Because the truth is that when you share just information, the data, the statistics, if there's no story attached, people are going to forget it. They say that after you make a pitch and there's no story, 10 minutes later, people will only remember 5% of what you said. But when I'm talking about a story, I'm not just talking about the written script, like a Pixar script. I'm not just talking about when you're talking to people. Stories can use all the 5 senses. Yes, what we hear, what we see, what we taste, what we touch, what we taste. Everything tells a story. I'm staying at a very nice hotel right now, the Four Seasons. Really can't get better than that, right? And when I entered the hotel, the music playing tells a story because it's one that fits the mood. They're not accidentally playing, you know, the wrong type of music for that ambiance. When I meet the person at the front, their voice is friendly. They're happy to see me. When they offer you some of that water with, you know, lemon and mint in it, the taste is telling a story. The visuals are telling a story. And then when you have to sign your name, you know, the pen they gave you, you're like, ooh, this is a good pen. I'm going to steal this pen, right? It's telling a story through all the 5 senses. But I would say the number one way to tell a story is visual. Because visuals, you don't need to translate visuals. Everybody will understand it. Like this Tiffany & Company ad. We recognize that color that Tiffany & Company uses. It looks like the heavens, the sky. Because Tiffany & Company wants you to feel that whenever you're getting something from that store, you're going to go somewhere heavenly. It looks like the sky. They usually use a flowing white ribbon or white to make it look like a cloud. Why do they go through this effort? Because they're not the only people that sell jewelry. And if they want to stand out, they need to be telling a story that's memorable. Even the typeface looks elegant and sophisticated. If they would have used the same font as Toy Story, it wouldn't have worked. Visual storytelling. It sticks with us. And these stories impact us. And that is so important because when you're making a pitch, a presentation, when you're trying to get people excited around an idea that is important to you, you need to impact people's senses. Because people make big and small decisions in life because we made them feel something. The release of dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins, those chemicals that make us laugh, make us sad, and inspire us, they stick with us. And when you think about like the movie Up, did anybody watch the movie Up? Remember the house? Do you remember in the first 10 minutes of the movie, there's no characters talking. It was only visuals and music. And we took you through a roller coaster ride where we released dopamine whenever there was a happy moment. And dopamine makes you very focused. And then there were sad moments. And when there's sad moments, it makes us have the release of oxytocin. We have empathy for the characters. This is why we love stories. They're like a roller coaster ride between highs and lows and highs and lows. And Steve Jobs, my boss, he knew how to use this. I think we know that Steve Jobs didn't really create those devices, but he knew how to wrap a story around it so people would want one. And he used the same principles of dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins. He would get people excited in the beginning around this idea. And when he pitched the iPhone in San Francisco, he was in a giant conference like this. He came up on stage, and he was a little late because he couldn't find any parking in San Francisco. And he said that to everybody, and they kind of laughed a little bit because they could relate to him because they couldn't find parking in San Francisco either. And what that does is when you make people laugh, it releases endorphins. And when you release endorphins in people, it reduces anxiety and makes people feel more creative and comfortable. And then, as he did his pitch for the iPhone, he did ups and downs. He first said, "I have never been more excited about any product I have ever made than this one in my hand right now." When you say that, you release dopamine. And everybody wants to know, why is this the most exciting thing you've ever made, Steve? But now if you release dopamine nonstop, though, it gets exhausting and everything becomes the same feeling. We need ups and downs. And then he shares that we're not the first ones who have created an iPhone. You can go to your local electronics store. They have a smartphone, but they're not really smart. Because my smartphones, you can go on the internet. That's the process that we love, highs and lows. And when you do this, you impact people's senses. Because I think we know that when we buy things, whether it's a car or an iPhone, or we decide what movie we want to watch or what vacation destination we want to take, it's because there's a story attached. Somebody impacted our emotions, and we wanted to be a part of that brand, whether it's the Disney brand, the Nike brand, the Apple brand. And we're not so much thinking about the data and statistics, we're thinking about, I want to be a part of that story. And that's the way our brain works. We end up making decisions because somebody impacted our story senses, and then later on we rationalize it. For example, I own a Jeep. And when I bought that Jeep, it was not logical. But I wanted to buy the Jeep because I wanted to be Indiana Jones from Raiders of the Lost Ark. I wanted to be a part of that story. But the Jeep in America, they roll over all the time. They get the worst gas mileage. It's not logical. But I bought it because of the story. We make decisions based on feelings, then we rationalize it later. This is the way our brain works. And all of us have the ability to tell stories that impact people's emotions. We can tell stories that are our career path story. Where did we grow up? What did our parents do for a living? What did we want to do when we were teenagers? We love to hear our career path stories, our experiences, our metaphors. And these stories that you can tell don't and shouldn't be 90 minutes long, like a movie. They should be 90 seconds. But every one of these stories will follow the same steps of your favorite movie, favorite TV show, favorite book. You'll have a hero. The hero wants something, a goal. There'll be a set of obstacles, and there'll be a change. And sometimes you're going to be the hero when you're sharing your career path story. But most of the time, your customer, someone on your team, is going to be the hero, and you're trying to inspire them. And so you always want to weave that story in to make a connection with people. Now, whether I'm working on a movie, a TV show, or I'm coaching a CEO or someone who's going to do a TED Talk, I'm always using the same story principles. A movie, actually, that I've worked on as a writer is on Netflix right now, and I think it's in the top 3 or #1 animated film right now, and it's called In Your Dreams. And even for that film, there's 5 things that I always focus on when it comes to a good story, whether it's business, entertainment, whatever. Number 1, you got to have a great hook. Even the name of this movie that's out on Netflix right now, called In Your Dreams, you even know by the title of the movie what it's going to be about. And when you see the poster, you're like, okay, this looks fun. Because the thing is, people have such a short attention span that if you can't grab their attention in 8 seconds with a story, they're going to just start looking at their iPhone and release dopamine, looking on Instagram or something, right? You have 8 seconds to be able to hook people with what is your company about, what are you passionate about, what is your film about? No pressure. How do you do that in 8 seconds? Well, I can tell you, whether it's the movie poster, the billboard, the beginning of the film, you need to have something that is unusual. That means, what is the ordinary world about dreams, and how is it going to be different? What is the ordinary world about cars? How is your car going to be different? There's also unexpected, shock value. And then there's landing people in a hook where there is action or conflict. These are the different types of hooks I use all the time when I'm pitching movies, like The Incredibles. You know, this was an unusual pitch because everybody at the time knew that superheroes save people. And our 8-second pitch was, what if superheroes were banned from saving people? 8 seconds, it's unusual. And then people asked me, so why would they be banned? And now I have their attention. I think you guys know when you go into a pitch, a meeting, people lose interest really quick. How can you grab their attention with a great hook? The movie Ratatouille was very unexpected, very shocking. What if a rat wanted to become a French chef? Okay. The last creature on earth you want touching your food is a rat. But people are like, wait a minute. How is he going to become a French chef? I've got to watch this to find out. That's what a great hook does. And then once you hook people, you have their attention. They'll listen to you for a little bit longer now. But the next thing people want to know, how is this thing going to change my life? If I pay that movie to take my family to go see this Pixar film, is it going to create a great family bonding experience, or are we all going to fall asleep in the movie theater? Or you make your pitch, you give your hook, and people are thinking, how is this going to change me? Is it going to make me healthier, wealthier, wiser? Everybody wants to know, what's this going to do for me? And the best way to share that is by giving people examples of how their experience will be great, how they will be changed, by sharing with them examples, how other people have been affected by that movie. That's why we always have people go see the movie ahead of time, and they come out of the movie theater and they go, that was the best movie I've ever seen, right? Or you end up putting on a website testimonials. I love this company, right? You need to share how other people have been affected for people to trust it and say, okay. And that is why we love movies with characters changing, going through transformations. Because when we watch a movie like Harry Potter, we end up seeing a character go through a change. Like Harry Potter goes from being kind of timid and scared to being brave. And it actually inspires us. After we watch the movie, we think, maybe I can be more brave in my life. Or you watch a TV show like Wednesday Addams, and she learns to become more caring. But there is a magic about storytelling, because stories really can change you. And just think of a time where maybe you fell in love, and then you got your heart broken, and you thought to yourself, I'm never going to fall in love again. And then you accidentally watch a romantic comedy, and when the 90 minutes are over on the romantic comedy, you're like, if they fell in love, there's still hope for me. That's what a story does. It will move you so much to give you the belief that if it worked for them, it can work for me. But you also need to make sure the stories that you give examples of connect to the right audience. You always need to be thinking about who is the group I'm pitching to? What is the culture? What is the age? What is the gender? But one of the amazing things, and I've had this experience for 30 years, can you create a story that connects with every single person on the planet? And that's what movies like Toy Story and Ratatouille and Finding Nemo have done. And the way that you make sure that you can connect with everyone, like a rat who wants to cook, is you have to find something that's relatable to everybody. All genders, all ages, all cultures. For example, a rat that wants to be a French chef, okay, we're not rats. Most of us don't know how to cook French food. But Ratatouille is about a character that wants to do the impossible. They want to do something that their culture says, it's not possible. Rats don't cook. These type of stories will connect with every single person on the planet. Stories around the desire for love and for safety and for the freedom to be able to make your own choices. These are universal stories. So when you watch movies like WALL-E, remember the one with the robot? That movie is about the last robot on Earth who wants to fall in love. And then Finding Nemo, it's about a father fish who wants to keep his son safe. And then movies like Turning Red and Brave and Ratatouille, they're about characters that want to have the freedom to make their own choices. These universal themes work for business, everything. And if you weave these into your pitches, you will connect with every single person in the room. And there's also fears. The fear of failure, the fear of abandonment, the fear of not belonging. Those are also universal stories that will connect with everybody. As somebody who's worked on Toy Story 1, Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3, Toy Story 4, and you know Toy Story 5 is coming. It's the most popular animated franchise of all time. And you want to know why? It's because every one of those movies deals with the fear of abandonment. What if I'm not loved? Woody, the cowboy, what if I'm not the most popular toy in the room? My owner won't love me. And then he gets older. Who's going to play with a toy that's old? When you use these universal themes, you will have everybody's attention. And while there is a method to storytelling, it's also important to make these stories authentic. And that's one of the first things that producers are looking for and investors are looking for, is why is this product, this movie pitch, important to you? Why is it authentic? And every one of those Pixar films I've worked on, we always told ourselves, don't be clever, just be vulnerable and honest. And that's why these movies have touched so many people. Like when we made Monsters, Inc., this is when most of us at Pixar started getting married and having kids. And we were perfectionists, and we worked all the time. And then all of a sudden, our kids are being brought to work. And we don't know what to do with our kids. How can I be the best employee at Pixar and watch a child? And you're thinking, oh, okay, I'll just put my kid in a closet for a little bit. And this is why we made Monsters, Inc. It was about a workaholic monster who wants to be the best until a kid comes into his life and changes him. That is why we made Monsters, Inc. And then when our kids got older and we fell in love with them and we wanted to protect them from all the dangers in the world, that inspired us to make Finding Nemo. And then when our kids got older and they became teenagers and we didn't know what they were thinking anymore, that's why we made Inside Out. That's why when you watch these Pixar films, you go, this isn't just a cartoon. This is like psychological. Because we put our own adult problems into the movies so that they weren't just for kids, they were for everybody. And that's the way we need to think when it comes to story. Don't be clever, be authentic. Bring part of you to why you love your company, what you're passionate about. And then the last thing, don't say your mission statement. I know we're told to do that, to say your purpose statement, your mission statement. But if we were to tell you the theme of our movie when you're watching a Pixar film, you would kill the authenticity. Can you imagine you're watching Finding Nemo, and then a fish swims up to the screen and says, being overprotective won't lead your loved ones to a better life. Letting them go will. You'd be like, why did you tell me this? You kind of belittle the audience. It makes the audience feel dumb. And it kills the magic. You want it to feel authentic. So when you watched Finding Nemo, we made you feel the theme. When Dory the bluefish with the memory problem says, if you never let anything happen to Nemo, nothing will ever happen to him. We love when things are authentic. And then we wrap it in with a nice story structure. Because every culture around the world, since the beginning of time, has been sharing stories with one another that always have a hero that goes on a journey. And it makes a difference. No difference what culture, where you are in the world, everybody loves a story with a hero on a journey. And we love the story that has a setup, a build, and a payoff, a beginning, a middle, and an end. Why? Because every day we see the beginning, the middle, and the end of a day. The course of our life is a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's part of our human psyche that we love stories that have a setup, build, and payoff. And when you're giving a pitch or presentation, when you're getting people excited about your story, and you don't have a beginning, middle, and an end, people will get bored, they'll get confused, because it's part of our DNA to have stories that have this kind of structure. The beginning of your next pitch, your next presentation, my next movie, You start off with the ordinary world. What it's like to be a superhero. What's it like to be a rat? What is it like to own a car company or a jewelry company or a shoe company? And how you believe it could be better. That's the beginning. The middle is when you take people through your journey of how you've tried to make a better product, a better movie. And don't be afraid to share the ups and downs. People love that. And then when you get to the end, share with people the success. Why their future story is going to be so much better if they end up working with you, if they end up seeing that next Pixar film. Because in the end, it's not about convincing people with the facts and the figures, with the data and the statistics. That's not what pulls on people's heartstrings. What pulls on people's heartstrings to make big and small decisions in life is the stories we tell and how we make people feel something. Because in the end, it all comes down to whoever tells the best story wins. Thank you, guys.
Whoever tells the best story wins, and I have to tell you, Matthew, that is one story to tell. How inspiring was that speech? That was incredible. I was sitting there, he was talking about 8 seconds to capture someone's attention. I was listening to 30 minutes and I didn't want the man to finish. Absolutely inspiring, fantastic presentation. From me, Matthew, you get a 10 out of 10. How inspiring was that for you, Hajar?
Very inspiring, so much to reflect on. It took us back to our childhood, so many memories, so many creations and stories, and we were very lucky today to have a bit of Matthew Lunn with us on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, have a break for 20 minutes and we will be back with more panels, more discussions, and more guests.
Sneak peek into what you can expect next in 2 words. Breakthrough science. That's all I'm gonna say. We'll see you guys after the break. What time are we back here again? 7:05. That's again, 7:05. We'll see you guys here after the break.
See you in 20 minutes.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back from break. Please come on in and take your seats because we are about to resume with our sessions. Our next session gets right to the heart of breakthrough science. What am I talking about? What if the smallest discoveries can make the biggest difference? From biotechnology and nanotechnology to advances in medicine and food, the innovations happening now that will redefine well-being for the next generation. How can young talents lead the charge in pioneering these research frontiers? What sort of worldview do they need to have, and what ethical questions must they be ready to answer? And what food or medicine and well-being will really look like in 25 years' time? To explore these themes and creativity and tech, and how we can remix them and make the fundamentals of life itself come to life, please join me in going through with these scientific trailblazers, and they are Dr. Mahalishmi Arujanin and Hashim El-Ghaili, along with presenter and media trainer Amandeep Bangu, for a session that proves small ideas can change the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our panelists.
Hello, and it's wonderful to be back on the stage from earlier today. Hello to our wonderful audience here. Dr. Maha Hashim. Now, you've been introduced as celebrated science communicators. That's a really fascinating intersection. Let's get an insight, first of all, about what inspired you to become science communicators. Who would like to begin? Who's feeling brave?
Yeah, sure. So, my name is Hashim, and I started science communication all the way back in 2008. And it happened when I actually saw that it was a boom time for social media. People were using social media for more than just entertainment, but to get their news also from there. And so I used it to promote science, technology, and I made sure that I provide them authentic sources of information by providing the papers in which these details were published. If they wanted to go and search more, they can just click on the links. And today I have more than 45 million followers across various social media channels and over 25 billion views.
That's a staggering number, and aren't we so pleased that he's taken the time out from away from social media to be with us here in person, and that's what platforms like the Miss Global Forum are all about. Dr. Maha, celebrated as a science communicator, what inspired you to get into this field?
Well, mine, it started 2008, just like Hisham as well. It started in 2003 when I was introduced to science communication by accident. I didn't know I was going into the field science communication, and it is still relatively a new field. It's only about 50 years old around the world, even in the developing countries. And when I was doing something in the interface of policies, regulations, political will, students getting into STEM, farmers adopting, embracing new technologies, youth getting into biotechnology, I thought there were so many broken links between what is happening in the lab and up to where it is supposed to end, to the people who it's intended to. There were so many broken links, and I thought this can only be mended through communicating with different stakeholders. And little did I know that I will become a renowned science communicator in the international landscape. I was listed as 100 most influential person in biotechnology in the world, alongside with Bill Gates, Melinda Gates, and many other prominent people in 2015 by Scientific American and many other awards.
And what an illustrious group to be listed with there. Fantastic to hear this, and inspiring to know that when it comes to science, it is about the power of communication. You mentioned there broken links, and you mentioned the word broken a few times. You're saying there's a disconnect, right, between what's happening in the lab and what's happening in the outside world. Please expand on that, Dr. Maha.
Okay, I think, scientists are not the greatest communicators because they speak completely a different language with so many jargons. So what happens is when policies or regulations are developed, And these are not developed by scientists. These are developed by policymakers, by politicians who are not trained in science. And a lot of policies and regulations looks beautiful on papers, but then the implementation is not good or they're not science-based. And this prevents science from being adopted. And then there's also risk-averse attitude among policymakers, politicians, and investors. So this also creates hurdles for science from lab to be commercialized. And today we'll see many youth, many students do not want to take up STEM or STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So how do we cultivate the interest? So there are many things that's not happening right now, and I think these are the broken links that I mentioned.
As you say, there's many things that are happening not right now. And back in 2008, Hashim, when you entered this field, you also felt that there was a disconnect between the power of what's being achieved in the scientific world and actually the impact it was having in the public being aware of this.
Honestly, I noticed that the impact was incredible. People were very receptive, especially because the way I was presenting science, translating complex scientific information, not in the form of text that they are normally used to, such as textbooks, research papers. Instead, I was turning them into infographics, into videos with engaging visuals. And so by making it visually engaging, people were not only learning new things, but they were also sharing what they are learning with everybody else.
And when it comes to sharing what you're learning with everybody else, what would be some of the key takeaways that we could take away from your personal journeys, from your professional achievements? Dr. Maha, what would you encourage, certainly a more youthful audience, when it comes to embracing skill sets to future-proof us?
Can you repeat the question?
Future-proofing us, what skills should we be embracing?
Okay. So this word, future-proofing, is my favorite word because the youth, all of you are sitting here, you are at the stage where in the future, you're going to be entering careers that's not existent now, you're going to be using tools and approaches and technologies that's non-existent and solving problems that's non-existent. So how do you future-proof? It may sound very gloomy, but it's not, because how do you future-proof? The most important thing is connecting the dots. And I think this is one skill that I do see lacking among students. So what do I mean by connecting the dots? You must look at what are the problems, global challenges we have? Climate change, drought, and food security, and emerging diseases. We just came out from pandemic not too long ago. So how do we connect those to the existing technology? How do we elevate the new technologies? How do we adopt new technologies? How do we innovate? So these are connecting dots, but these are connecting dots within the scientific field. But what we should do, or what you should be doing, is also go outside the scientific fields, connect the dots with economy, connect the dots with culture, connect the dots with religion, connect the dots with ethics, connect the dots with social science, human behavior, and these are what I mean by connecting the dots and future-proofing.
So there's a very empowering message there about connecting the dots. And may I connect to you, Hashim? What would be some of the skills that you would encourage the next generation to embrace to future-proof themselves?
Well, I would say one of the most important skills that we need right now is honestly learning how to use logic and rational thinking regardless of what we are learning about. We live in a world where social media is democratized. Everybody can just jump in, take a camera, and start publishing content on social media. But not everybody has the capacity to really deliver that information from authentic sources. So we need to question everything we see on social media, especially also at the age of AI, and find ways to distinguish between what's authentic and what's not authentic. So can we survive the age of misinformation, should you call it?
So how to survive the age of misinformation, that does sound like a very key skill. critical thinking, but also having that attribution to the facts. And that's what science is all about. This particular panel, which is fantastic to have you here with us at the Miss Global Forum, we have the very intriguing title, Creating Big Impact at Nanoscale. So how would you interpret that, Dr. Maha?
Okay, when the first time I saw that topic given to me, because I'm trained as microbiologist for my first degree, then I did biotechnology as for my master's, and I pivoted to science communication for my PhD. Actually, I was the first one to do PhD in science communication in my country, Malaysia.
The very first person in all of Malaysia. Wow.
Yes.
It's almost like they created that course just for you. It's like they created the course for you.
It was so difficult because, you know, being a pioneer is really difficult. So when I saw the topic, nanoscale to creating impact, coming from a microbiologist, you know, we study something that we can't see through naked eyes. The cells are nanocells, the enzymes within the cells, the organelles within the cells, they are all nanoscales. So I was thinking, you know, and I'm always fascinated by the impact that these small cells and by products within the cell can do, insulin, and how bacteria impacts us, the benefits bacteria and the products give us. So this nanoscale, how do they create large impact? And that was what came to my mind.
Well, you're certainly making a very large impact for us here, Dr. Maha. Hashim, how do you interpret this title, Creating Big Impact at Nanoscale?
Right. So, you know, I publish content on social media every single day. And maybe among the audience, there are some people who aspire to become content creators. Now, of course, it's important to be very responsible. I receive messages and emails from people saying that a single post that I shared actually helped them make a decision that affected their life. Like, I was confused. Should I choose stem cell research or should I choose microbiology? There is a distinction between the two. And then they see a single post and they make a decision upon which many years later they are still, you know, working on that decision. And then they come to me, thanks to that post, I actually made that decision. And so you are making an impact on a nanoscale because it's a member of a society who will then go on to make a bigger impact in society. And I feel like, you know, if we're going to be science communicators, we have to be responsible and we have to make sure that we're helping people make the right decisions because we're affecting society as a whole.
I love the answers that we're hearing here. So you very much, Dr. Maha, spoke about it on a scientific basis, and Hashim broadened it to a philosophical take on the question about how each individual can have a bigger impact, both in their small ecosystem, in the communities that they touch, and then hopefully on a global scale, as you both have had. Now, also a key word that you mentioned there, Hashim, was responsibility. Dr. Maha and Hashim, if I can bring you both in on this question, as science communicators, how at the forefront of your mind is this question of ethical and social responsibility when you are communicating with the world? Dr. Maha?
Yes, I mean, I'm trained as a scientist. So we all know every technology has got dual use. The simplest technology, a knife, can be used to cut vegetables or also to kill someone. So the same goes for biotechnology, life sciences, which are really, you know, very potent, powerful technologies. And just before coming here, I was in Singapore, I was in Tokyo talking about biorisk, talking about biosecurity, talking about responsible research innovation. Now, we can use a bacteria to cure something, we can use a virus to create a drug, to create a vaccine, but we can use the same bacteria and drug to create bioweapon as well, right? So ethics comes into place here, and this is where scientists are actually, they self-regulate. You know, the first science, the regulation was in Asiloma in California, when a group of scientists came together and they said, hey, look, this genetic engineering is really becoming so big and we need to regulate. And that was in 1975. So I, coming from a science background, I would say scientists are a responsible bunch of people, but this technology can go into the wrong hands. And this is where many countries have bioethics councils. I was part of Bioethics Council in Malaysia, and we also have international conventions, biological diversity, CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity, Cartagena Protocol, where regulations are in place. So there are many like that.
Fantastic.
I want to add to that point. I mean, it's great to show the two sides of technology, that it can be used for good and bad depending on who is using it. But I also try to sometimes do something else, which is show what would happen if regulations are not too strict. And I'm going to give you an example. For example, we have embryonic research on embryos.
Yes.
They are destroyed after 14 days because they believe consciousness begins. And then you have to destroy it because you don't want to experiment on a human. Personally, I'm against, honestly, this kind of restriction, and I have advocated against it because we want to see what's going to happen after 14 days if we want to see the potential applications. Now I think it's 22 days. They have relaxed the restrictions, but I will continue advocating because there is another side of technology that is not explored enough, and we also have to be responsible to show what it could also do, the good things.
I am so glad you brought this up because I'm an advocate for biotechnology, and this is where I spoke about regulations and policies. When they are so strict, they are not science-based, it's also not responsible use of innovation and research. It's going to stifle research, it's going to create so much of problems, not solving our global challenges like food insecurity, climate change. So I'm a big advocate for responsible policies and regulations. Thank you, Hisham.
And this is why platforms like this are so fruitful, because we actually get to hear about them with our wonderful audience. You mentioned global challenges there, Dr. Maha. Let's talk about how the science communication world is embracing these global challenges. What are some of the things at the forefront of your mind?
What are something?
At the forefront of your mind about global challenges.
Okay, so you see, global challenges, right now, we are sitting in this region, and this region is known to be arid. It's desert, and how do we use technology so that regions like this can also grow crops that can survive, in drought, in desert? We're talking about desalinization of seawater, because water is a scarce commodity, and again, technology comes in. We're talking about oil spill. This region is an oil-producing region, and if it spills in the sea, what happens? It really creates so much of problem for aquatic life. So again, that's where technology comes in. So we have so many global challenges, and I said pandemic. So another pandemic, it will come. We don't know when. And these are the things that we need to address through technology. So these are just some of the global challenges.
Right. Well, I mean, we are always surrounded by an increasing number of problems. There is increasing number of diseases, energy crisis. Our energy needs are expanding, especially with the rise of AI. And the solution, in my opinion, is AI. I mean, if you see these days, they are designing drugs with the help of AI, some of which are already in clinical trials. AI can do complex simulations. It can create solutions for problems that we don't even think about. I remember reading a paper recently, or an article about a group of scientists. They have been working on solving a problem for nearly 10 years. And then they used an AI model which solved it in less than 48 hours.
Wow.
So think of the impact that AI can make. I feel like when I think about Europe, for example, which hasn't embraced AI fully, and I think about our region here, which has embraced AI at a more larger scale, I feel like whoever embraces AI will always be in the forefront of solving many of the global challenges.
And as you say there, that idea that the region you're sensing is embracing AI and the potential for AI more strongly than other regions.
Exactly.
What else lends itself to being celebrated here in the global south when you're working and living here?
Well, I would say the embracing of technology. I mean, I was just coming out from Dubai to travel to Riyadh, and for the first time ever, I didn't have to use my passport. It just scanned my face, and that's it. No scanning of passport, no stamps, no nothing. Honestly, I was like surprised because I have never had that before. I think moving into digitization, making everything more accessible, getting rid of bureaucracy, when you compare this region to other regions, it's definitely the best here.
Dr. Maha, what should be celebrated when we speak about the Global South?
Well, I want to still touch on AI. Now, AI is the buzzword now, artificial intelligence. And as the words go, it is still artificial. So I always ask my audience, my students, so where is the real intelligence? The real intelligence is still us. But what I see among countries, including mine, is that everything has to be AI. Now, how do AI make decisions? It doesn't make decisions by itself. It has to be fed with trillions of data. And where's the data coming from? It's coming from the research that we do. So we have to have the data. AI does not have the data. And this is where the basic science is still important. And I see basic science is being abandoned by many countries because it takes a long time for basic science to see the results. But basic science is what gives birth to technology. And the youth here, when you become the future leader, when you become the future minister, when you become the future scientist, think about the foundation. The foundation is so important. Without foundation, a house can never be built.
So we've talked here about the power of responsibility, ethical questions, inspiring ourselves to be empowered by factual information, and that's the intersection of the science and the storytelling. In the last few minutes, Hashim and Dr. Maha, what would you like the audience to take away with themselves as practical takeaways on this subject matter? Hashim?
Well, I would say the takeaway is, as I said previously, we live in an increasingly volatile social media atmosphere, all right, where information can sometimes be very hard to verify, whether it's visually, with the deep fakes, with information generated sometimes by hallucinating AI models. We need to find a way to keep thinking rationally so that we don't fall into the trap of believing misinformation and spreading it into our environment, or sharing it with our friends or family, or family WhatsApp groups, of course, because I always receive questions. Is this real or is this not? So the takeaway is we need to, regardless of all the changes, we need to maintain one basic human skill that cannot be replaced by anybody, which is logical and rational thinking.
Dr. Maha?
For me, the takeaway is, I've been in this field for so long, and I continue to pursue this field because, as I said, there are many broken links. And the youth here, as I said, you're going to be the future leader, you're going to be the future scientist, you're going to be the future politician, policymakers. Now, I urge you not to make the same mistakes that my generation has made. Now, what are these mistakes? Create the political will, top-down approach, where the top says, this is the way we are going to go. We are going to embrace technology, we are going to embrace science, so put the infrastructure, put the funding, put the human resources there. Now, that is what I would like to see. And I'd like to see barriers and silos being removed, because currently it's very territorial. My lab is my lab. I don't want anyone to enter my field. So break those barriers, not just within the country, but in the region. And I've worked so much to connect this because I work internationally. I've created so many platforms so that we can all work together, foster collaboration and cooperation. And sitting here as a woman, I want the women here to take the lead, be the power, and take your seat wherever you are going, and be the leader in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
I think that's really inspiring words here. So we've, yes, deserves a round of applause.
Thank you.
So we've heard there about critical and logical thinking. It really does need to be both embraced and celebrated. We talk about connections, collaborations, and empowering the youth, and in particular, female participation in STEM careers. And let's, because we've got a wonderful takeaway messages from you all, and let's allow you to take the last few minutes and share with us what's coming up for 2026 with you both. You mentioned some exciting projects, and then Hashim on this note as well. Next year, what's happening for you?
Okay, I have this passion for the first. I always create the first initiatives, and I look at the gaps, and I say this needs to be done, and I create the first. So I created the first science newspaper in Malaysia, and I am making this regional. Right now, my people are working on a website to make it regional and international, as I said, to foster collaboration, especially in biotechnology. I'm also working on developing a journal for any students below the level of universities, because I know a lot of students go for international innovation competitions. They create innovation, but it's not documented. I want these students to write in a scientific manner, just like how we write journal papers, but just a short 3-page. And I want to publish that so that we create future scientists.
Fantastic. Creating future scientists. I love it. Hashim, what's happening for you?
I'm always on the lookout for new ways to communicate science effectively and make sure that it's as engaging as possible. And I'm slowly creating more and more AI-assisted films, which blend science with science fiction and storytelling. And so the purpose of these films is to do 2 things. One, to inspire people and show them the potential of technology, what it can do for us when we use it right, and also offer sometimes a warning for cases in which technology is being misused. And I find that when you use a story as a base for delivering information, it's really more effective and it generates more discussion. And that's my goal for 2026.
And that's a very intriguing goal, which means that we'll have to follow up with you and watch out for your film that's going to come out. And I love that idea of blending kind of the AI world with the real world there as well. So I think we started with this notion of having some of the world's most celebrated science communicators take to our stage. We've learned a lot from them in terms of their personal and professional journeys. And you've given us an insight in terms of what's coming up, exciting, tantalizing projects for you in the near future. Let's end on maybe one word each. One word, when you think of the power of science communication going forward, what would it be? Your one word, Dr. Maha, or one phrase?
One phrase.
One phrase or one word? I'm open to it.
Okay. Speak at the stage, speak in a meeting, not on corridors, to make the change.
So speak up.
Yes.
Seize the ground and speak up. Inspiring. Hashim?
Stay curious.
Stay curious. I love it. The curiosity will mean that one is embracing the power of science communication and therefore communicating it by speaking up. My esteemed audience, please give our panelists a wonderful round of applause for giving us their wonderful insight and wonderful experience. It's been great to be here with you at the Miss Global Forum. Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maha, and thank you to Hashim for showing us how small things can lead to big change in this world that we live in health and in sciences. It's good to see you guys. I hope you guys have been enjoying the forum. I don't know about you, but I know I have. But it's okay if you haven't gotten a chance to explore it all. Today is just day 1, and we still got a full day tomorrow. But let's talk about tomorrow, and let's continue talking about today. We've got something very exciting for everyone in this room. What am I talking about? Leadership. It's about leadership, but leadership, a new form of leadership, not the one that we're used to in the past. And to shed more light on that and how to prepare for it effectively, we have just the right people to walk us through it. We have a group of people who have helped lots of young leaders learn and grow in classrooms, in big companies, at the UN, and even scouts around the world. They'll share how simple lessons, what worked and what was hard, and how they've learned from these experiences to improve their leadership, and how you can too, and some things that they wish they knew when they were just starting out. To help us explore those mindsets and skills, we have a fantastic panel who have trained, advocated for, and worked with leaders at the very top of their fields. Executive Dean of the Schwarzman College at Tsinghua University, Professor David Pan. We also have the Dean of the London Business School, Sergey Guriev. Regional Director of Save the Children in MENA and in Eastern Europe, Ahmed El-Hindawi. Secretary General of World Scouting, David Berg. And to lead the discussion, Managing Director of EXO Consulting, Solvig Niklas. What an absolute lineup. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our panel to the stage.
evening, everyone, and thank you so much for participating in our panel tonight. I'm very, very excited about this subject because regardless of what's going on in the world with AI and everything else, I think leadership is one of those staple subjects that will remain. It is something especially interesting for young leaders because leadership and management are frequently mistaken, and you don't have to have the position to be able to step up and demonstrate the leadership skills. It's not about waiting for your turn to act, but really knowing what your North Star is, knowing the goals, and acting accordingly. With that, we have an extraordinarily distinguished panel, and I will throw it to them to talk more. And I'm going to start with a conversation that isn't in the official questions, but what do you wish someone would ask you about leadership? What is missing from the dialogue? Professor.
Thank you, Solveig, and thank you for inviting me. Actually, one question as an academic I find is always missing is the definition. If you ask me what is leadership, I'm sure everyone on stage will give you a different answer. Do you want my answer?
Of course.
So in academia, people usually talk about leadership as a capacity to inspire, guide, or direct others to work towards a common goal. And so there are many elements in this definition which really matter. But it is striking when we talk about leadership, we don't pin down the definition.
Thank you. Professor.
So good evening, good evening. So if anyone asks about the leadership, you know, the leadership is a different field, different context, different leadership. Political leadership, business leadership, academic leadership. But depends on who you are and ask different categories. So you can ask any questions about the leadership. Anyone can be the leadership if you have influence. You know, I have one student, and he has the 10,000 followers. It's good leadership because the people influenced by him daily base. You know, he talk everything. 10 million followers. So there's a kind of the leadership. So you can ask any questions. It's open. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the unscripted question. I think that's a good one to start with when talking about leadership. And maybe a disclaimer here that I've never been a fan of like the ready-made recipes, 8 secret sauces for how to become a leader, 10 secret things to make you a super leader, etc. I've never been any fans. In fact, if anything, I like distilling that stories from memoirs of people who write about themselves. So the one question that I wish we can talk more about is about the human toll it takes as well, or the toll it takes in leaders themselves really to carry themselves, and how they get themselves out of low moments, and when frustration takes the best out of you, how you can pick yourself up. I'm happy to talk about my 2 cents and how I pick myself up, learning from a leader like Mandela, reading some of his letters and reading how he handled the toughest of days. And I feel sometimes we just talk about the glorious side of it, and we don't ask enough about these tough moments and how leaders really take these moments of doubt with themselves.
David.
Thank you. Yeah, if I think about a question that's never asked to me about leadership is, why are leaders not allowed to fail? Often when a leader fails or a manager fails, it's seen as an error, it's bad performance, should we have this person? I actually think learning and experimenting and leading with humility and collaborating and seeing exactly if things work and trying out things together are some of the most meaningful experiences you can have in becoming a better leader. And I think that's, for example, one of the key things that we do with Scouting. We offer spaces where young people have an opportunity to learn, but also to fail and reflect on why things didn't work out and take learnings from that.
Thank you, and I will follow up on a number of those points as we move forward, but we'll jump in, Ahmed, and I think it actually leads, what you just said leads very much to the question now. As the regional director for Save the Children, you cover a wide geographical area containing several humanitarian crises right now. You have to deal with the details of that, an enormously large team. What does it mean to you to lead in a situation where the stakes are so high? And I'll add on, how do you handle those low moments when you have them?
Yeah, thanks. And I had opportunities in January this year to lead one of the regions of Save the Children, which is one of the oldest and definitely perhaps the largest children's rights and development organization around the world, operating in over 100 countries. I rejoined because I was out of the Middle East, North Africa, Eastern Europe for many years, and that was an opportunity for me to come back to this region. I'm part of it because of what's happening in the region. I mean, it was about time that also trying to be part of really contributing to the betterment or at least easing the suffering. Coming back to this job since January, and it's a region that starts in Ukraine and ends in Yemen, with over 2,700 staff dealing with the worst of the, I would say, the human failures and tackling conflicts and crises. And one of the things that I realized I needed to be better at is trying to narrate and better understand the trends we are up against, because a lot of our colleagues are responding to what they are responding to, but they also expect in their leaders the ability to analyze some of the bigger trends happening around us. This is a year that we have seen a lot of twists, a lot of shifts, stop work order, stopping funding, changes and challenges in Gaza, the exacerbating human suffering across the whole region. And colleagues, they look for a better analysis, a better ability to explain to them how are we responding and what we should expect around the corner. But with that, what I'm expecting and what I'm finding out as well, we used to operate with a report at the beginning of the year where we talk about the trends for the year, what we expect will happen this year. And I'm finding myself more than just, more like a weather forecast man. I mean, just coming on a weekly basis, talking about what we're finding out, how things are shifting, and some of the very good conviction of analysis we have for now and this week will become severely outdated. And one of the challenges also in managing it during this unsettling times is often humanitarian organizations who are responding to all these catastrophes and conflicts. We are finding ourselves a lot of time fighting the yesterday's battle, not where things are heading. Because you always deal with the failure and you deal with the obsession of trying to analyze it or trying to deal with events with the lag that we're seeing today. If you combine that, the bigger trends of what we're seeing, the need for constantly updating your analysis, and then trying to lead an operationally sound response where you have donors are expecting you to show results. Some of the donors are having cold feet to invest and work in this environment, where you have the needs of children and their communities at all-time high, with that paradox that resources almost at all-time low compared to the last 10 years, but the needs are absolutely the highest. So when you bake all of this in, it just gives the job of a leader to be as agile, as humble as possible, and to answer the question about how I pick myself up is actually something I've done more this year than all my years of work, is really show more vulnerability. You don't know what you don't know. I think you really need to count the collective wisdom for everyone around you.
Well, thank you very much for a wonderful answer and for the wonderful work you do. So thank you for that. I'm going to switch to you, David, talking about, you mentioned failure. You mentioned the ability to fail in a safe environment where children can learn. And so what principles, tools, and techniques can we take from Scouting to help young people learn better, to be better leaders now and in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think leadership development in Scouting is not a theoretical thing. We do this extremely hands-on, and we do that from a very young age. And I think Scouting, not sure if many of the audience have been a Scout, but if you've not, you probably associate Scouting with like setting up camps, sleeping in tents, perhaps like making knots. And it's true, we do all these things, but we don't do them for the purpose of camping. We do them to teach young people and to enable young people to develop leadership skills. And we do that by having them camping, having them cooking together, having them do a hike in the forest together in small groups. And what happens when they do these activities is things go wrong. Young people learn, they fail, like they don't get the food burns, they get lost, or a conflict materializes in the group. And the real value afterwards is to reflect, like, so what happened in this little project? Like, why did it not go according to plan? And they learn out of that project management skills, they learn out of that dialogue skills to understand, like, why people have different perspectives. And that, I think, is one of the key things, like you take through that real responsibility, they make real decisions, and they learn to manage the real life consequences of that. And that's very practical. And we don't, I mean, there are adults involved in that, but we don't teach them. Like, we just create a framework, and adults are there to make sure it's a safe space where failures can happen and where young people can then learn out of those. And so young people learn through that how to facilitate a team, navigate emotions, ethical reasoning, and leadership styles in different contexts. So within Scouting, you learn that within the program, and then we pull that through in our organization. We truly believe like that leadership skills and youth leadership should be reflected at the different levels, in leading local groups, in leading national organizations, to leading the world board. Like, we're truly an intergenerational organization where 30 to 40% of our leaders at all levels are young people below the age of 30. So that, I think, is how we provide an out-of-the-classroom experience that then complements afterwards easier to learn like formal frameworks and context that you can then easily reflect to early experiences you had as a young person.
Thank you. One of the things I like about this panel in particular is there's a tremendous practitioner and a tremendous representation of the academic. And so we're going to switch a little bit to the other side with Professor Sergey. You had an op-ed, I think, published today on what does good leadership really mean today. Is it a way of being, a cultural lead, a vision, a level of competence, or all of this? How will this change over the coming decades?
Thank you, Solveig. Indeed, I wrote an op-ed for Arab News today about the human capital investment for Saudi transformation. And I'm very happy to say that we are part of this transformation. Tomorrow we are opening London Business School's office in Riyadh, in Diriyah. And we are a global business school, and for us, being a contributor to training new generation of leaders in a country like Saudi Arabia is very important. Now, when we talk about needs of leadership, needs of new leaders today, we live in the world which changes all the time, and it's also complex. You told me that I am not allowed to talk about AI, but you mentioned AI in your first sentence, and we have this technological disruption which is very fast. We have conflicts, we have wars, we have trade wars and shifts in the global financial system, we have climate and nature crisis, we have demographic transition. And when we think about this, leaders need to know a lot. Leaders need to be very competent. They need to understand many things that they didn't have to. But one person, however smart this person is, cannot be competent enough to handle all these challenges. And so you need to bring the whole team with you. You need to inspire other people. You need to produce a vision, a common goal, so everybody around you works together, being inspired by this vision. But then the other challenge is, while you're committed to this guiding star and work towards a common goal, you also need to remember that the world is changing fast, so you also have to be agile and adapt, constantly evaluate, analyze, accelerate, slow down. And that is a major trade-off between being, on one hand, inclined towards inspiring people towards a guiding star and common goal. On the other hand, change and adapt all the time. And this balance, of course, this judgment, how you strike the equilibrium between these conflicting goals is context dependent. And that's why, on one hand, you want to be global because the world is global, the shocks are global, solutions are also dependent on global environment. On the other hand, you need to take into account local business context. And this is again another trade-off that business education and leadership upskilling needs to take into account today. And that's why we, London Business School, being a global school, also want to be on the ground, working together with our Saudi partners, training new generations of leaders that Saudi Arabia needs for the Vision 2030.
Thank you. And Professor David, we've talked, inherent in many of the comments that people have made is the discussion of context, culture, internationalism, and of course in this conference we're talking about youth. So there's generational differences as well. in getting youth voices heard in decision making? Is there a clash between the younger and older styles of leadership? And how do you train future leaders to mitigate any disconnect there?
Okay, so there's before they start, I just take there's a few minutes, 1 minute or 2 minutes, and introduce the Strassman College and the Tsinghua University. And any of you heard about the Tsinghua University? You can raise your hand. Okay, so one was only a few. Okay, so and how about the Strassman College? Still, it's just a few. There's one, only 5, only 1%. So that's why I come here. And so you see, I find out the similarity is that Tsinghua's the color is exactly the same as our MGF's color. It's purple. So that's why I come here. And to answer your question, you know, our program designed for that's the leadership in the future. Why this? You know, there's our master's degree. That's a master's degree that's called Global Leadership. Okay, answer your question, what's the leadership today? And also how we work on that leadership. I just, from my perspective. And so that is, our mission is, there's understanding China and the broader vision, global vision, and for the future, the problem solver. Whatever the leadership, so you have to solve the problem. It's not only lip service. So that's why we try to cultivate the students, master's degree students, and understand the world and get in the future, get the mutual understanding each other. Now understanding, you cannot fix the problem based on the cross-cultural situation today. And another 1 minute introduce our program. Our program is 10 years already, and we have 1,300 students already around the whole world. There's 126 countries the students coming from. It's the next cohort. Our acceptance rate is only 2.5%, and very competitive. 2 of our next cohort students sitting over here, and I want they stand up. It's also they from Saudi, so there's a great. So thank you. See. Thank you so much. Thank you. And there's the future. We can see from the future leaders. We can see their characters, their intellectual, and also there's a very young talents, and that is our the future. Our program so far so good. Give one example. You know, at the evening, you are tired, you are sleepy. So one example, we only have 150 students, and the Tsinghua is 45,000 students. And so we have every year we have a sports competition, and the other schools. There's like a business school. There's a Professor Sergio, is very familiar. They have 4,500 students, and EE is an electrical engineering school. There's 2,000. Computer science, AI schools, they have 1,000. We only have 150 students, and the students ask me to, hey Ding, so we'll go to the competition for the sports. I said, absolutely, so we can go. So we only have 150 students. We are the smallest school on campus. But when we go there for the sports competition, we are the women number 1, men number 1. There's all the number 1. So very competitive for our students' body. So that's, I don't know why we are so strong. We never care about this, evaluate their sports, the capability. So being the future leader. So that's you have a strong body, you have a strong mind. So that's you make a strong decision. The last one. So please apply our program. Why? Because there's another leadership evaluation. Why? Because we're only 2.5% the acceptance rate. 1% opportunity. You have to make 100% efforts. That is the leadership. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to switch a little bit to discussion of traits of leadership that are important, and to kind of Has that evolved? Is that evolving? And how are we approaching it in the teaching of it, in the application of it? So for David, World Scouting has been training young leaders for more than a century. So you've got a very longitudinal view of the kind of skills and traits and what has emerged. What do you think has changed in leadership, and what do you think will change in the near future?
Yeah. I mean, if I look at discussions around youth leadership, youth involvement, having young voices represented at decision-making tables, this used to be an aspirational discussion. Like, this is important, we need to have this. Now, I think if you look at demographics around the world, this is no longer an aspiration. This is absolutely a mandatory element. Like, we have half of the world's population is under 30, and this number will increase over the decades to come. So organizations, companies, institutions who do not buy into youth leadership, who do not make sure youth are represented in their decision making, in how they market products, in how they deliver programs, they will simply find a problem of credibility. They will not speak to a massive audience anymore. So, and it's not only the demographics, but you see also around the world a shift in that, like digital fluency and literacy. You see whole labor markets recalibrating to having more tech-savvy people. And then you see that, for example, in mentoring as well. Like, the old practice used to be that mentors used to be the more experienced, older generations coaching the younger generations. But nowadays, you see reverse mentoring. You see younger, like new hires, educating and mentoring older generations on inclusion, on climate strategy, on digital safety. So there's a real need there to look at how we bring youth leadership around the table. And for me, that's not a question of or, but and. Like, it's about intergenerational by design. It's not about passing on the baton, but co-holding and having generations actively work together. And that requires fundamental change in how organizations are structured, how curricula are built, also on funding models. How do we make sure youth-led solutions can have adequate funding? How do we make sure we step back, we create space as adults without stepping away? Because the power, I think, is really in intergenerational. So the question that we have evolved to is not anymore how can young people be the leaders for tomorrow, but how can we lead together with young people today? I think that's the real question where we have evolved to. No longer an option, no longer an aspiration, but an absolute necessity to have with the current situation of the world.
Thank you. Ahmed, I'm curious, given the challenges of the situations you face, you have to have passion for the mission, obviously, in the work, and empathy, but you also have to make extremely difficult decisions. So how, can passion and empathy distract from your ability to cut through and make the decisions? Or, how do you deal with that dichotomy?
Yeah, I think that's the reality of almost every day's life, and some of these positions, some of the trade-offs you have to navigate through. I mean, just to tell you one of the most challenging things we have to suffer through this year. And when the year started, by the way, just to play a bit of dynamics, David and I were working together for almost 8 years. So I was coming from World Scouting to a new job, and see the children starting with the year. The first 2 weeks, we had a change in Syria. We thought we have an opening, good momentum, and there was a ceasefire announced in January, if you remember, in Gaza. And then I thought, like, new job, a new start, good, promising, and things went down literally hell from there. We have seen a massive deterioration of the reality of the region. The war continued in Gaza. We've seen that genocide taking place in front of our eyes. We've seen exacerbating the exacerbation of the suffering as well across the region. And you name it. I mean, the war in Ukraine is now really impacting Kyiv itself. And we have seen a reality where you see more needs, clearly more needs. Is the difference between life and death. Now, just yesterday, we were looking at the events in Gaza and looking at what it means to go through another winter for children who are even not finding tents and still sleeping in summer clothes during this winter because humanitarian aid is not entering. You see, you deal with these issues. But it's in that same year of this year that we have to deal with one of the most significant cuts in funding that the whole humanitarian sector have seen. And how do you navigate through this? More needs, less resources, and then the people who are frontlining all of these failures, the human failures or the leadership failures to stop some of these conflicts and attend to these basic needs of individuals are themselves suffering. And I think one of the biggest challenges I found myself dealing with a lot this year is how we can exercise a leadership that is truly inclusive, truly open, but truly humane towards our colleagues who are dealing with the unimaginable of events. One more example. For a period of time when they're stopping flowing the aid into Gaza, and we were dealing with technically a famine that has been declared by the UN, the first call I make every morning in my job is to check in our team and to call the team in Gaza. And it never crossed my mind I would be in a situation where actually speaking to them, and I realize actually for 2-3 days they have nothing in their stomach. These are humanitarian workers who are working and showing leadership in the ground. Themselves are the subject of that suffering. And we have seen literally a new law of that leadership. So how do you navigate through all of this? I think maybe the two contributions I would say is staying in principle in the values you defend. We stand for humanitarian principles that, in fact, they are not since the creation of the UN, they were since over 150 years from the first Geneva Convention. And you try while being in principle, also trying to be pragmatic in winning more allies and getting more supporters for this cause, trying to speak directly with the public, trying to engage more of the public to compensate for some of the suffering we have as a result of some governments turning their back from supporting humanitarian work. It's been a rough year, and I'm not sure I can fully wrap my head around all the learnings from it. And maybe that's another thing I can share with you today. It's okay to just power through sometimes and not to try to be a hero, but really to be humble enough to know what you're up against is more difficult than what you can afford to support your colleagues on the ground.
Thank you. Professor Sergey, with the great focus, obviously, of this whole event on youth, there is a growing interest in social entrepreneurship and the difficult balance between profit and purpose. Do you see young leaders seeking to find new ways to use their private sector skills to affect change in the world?
Yes, thank you. I think it's a very important question because the world is facing so many challenges and not just producing more and making more money. Of course, if you have your private sector skills, don't be afraid to go into social entrepreneurship. Pursue what you dream about with efficiency and great competence and leadership skills. Why? In social entrepreneurship, usually the goals are underfunded, resources are limited, and when you're a leader of a NGO trying to achieve a goal which is not an easy goal to mobilize resources for, resources that you have entrusted to you by the society are limited, and so it is your duty to the public, to the general public, to use them as efficiently as you can. So private sector skills are very much in demand in the third sector, in social entrepreneurship sector. And social entrepreneurship sector is looking for people who can put those resources to the best use. And remember that it's hard. Social entrepreneurship is usually underpaid. It's still facing the same set of challenges, difficult leadership trade-offs. As a leader, I can tell you that all easy decisions are made by people in departments. Only very hard decisions rise to the very top. And you have to be honest and transparent that you're making decisions which are not easy and not obvious, and you have to tell colleagues why you're making these decisions, taking resources from that department, giving them to another department, taking resources from the long term, allocating them to short term, or vice versa. All these choices are hard, but they're very noble. And once again, private sector skills are very much needed in social entrepreneurship. Why? Because we need to use those resources as well as we can, as efficiently as we can. We should put those resources to the best use.
Excellent. Now, the last question I'm going to pose to all of you is sort of the takeaway to the youth in our audience. What single learning of great leadership do you believe young people can take back to their communities, schools, or workplaces right now? What is the one thing, if they were going to take one thing from this, what would you recommend it be? Dr. David, Professor David, I'll start with you.
So, whole group, the whole panel is talking about the leadership. There's, for me, the three key words is so important. For one, I teach some economic the course and also the effective leadership the course. So the one is a vision. So for the whatever what they are doing, so you have this not only say today and tomorrow and after tomorrow. So in Chinese we say there's eat on the rice bowl and thinking about the kitchen, also thinking about the rice field for the next year the growing. So that's the vision. Another one is the passion. So do what you like to do and put a lot of efforts to do that. If you are not interested in that, how can make that happen? So there's the second one is the passion. The last one is action or the implementation. You talk, you have a passion, but you only lay on the ground or lay on the bed. So there's how it can happen. So that's a take action. So vision, passion, action. So make it simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Ahmed.
I think David said it best. I mean, if you were to allow really the ability for young people to learn leadership, you're penalized in the labor market. In having businesses, you will be punished for failure. In education, you will not be that tolerated. So a lot of our societal norms don't allow for it. You need to create a space for these microdose failures to be practiced, embraced, and for people to really fail forward. And to do that, I think scouting is a great example. I'm biased. But volunteering, at the essence of it, I mean, volunteering is the most magical thing you can do in your life. You think you are giving, at the closing of the day, you realize that you have gained 10 times more than the time you have put in terms of learnings, experiences, friendships. Go and volunteer if you can't fail anywhere else.
Thank you. David.
Yeah, I think what I take away as most important of these discussions is that there is a need to allow space for change. There's a need for organizations, institutions, societies, governments to adapt to a changing demographic, to a changing world, a world that is going through a lot of political changes and expectations. And there's a real need, and these are difficult conversations, but I think it's very important with dialogue that we give space to different views of different generations and look forward. And you see, with uprisings like we've seen in Nepal, the Gen Z uprisings in Nepal, in Madagascar, these are symptoms of places where young people, half of the population, feel no longer heard. And to avoid that kind of situations, giving space, going into dialogue, even if that's difficult, to understand differences across generations, is, I think, essential to do.
All right. I will beg 20 seconds from the
One word, authenticity. You need to lead others by inspiring them. They need to trust you. And so they need to see that you actually believe in what you're doing. You believe in this vision with passion, to follow up on David's words. So authenticity. Say what you, do what you say, practice what you preach.
Thank you. And thank you all very much. Thank you for your attention this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
شكراً لأعضاء هذه الجلسة الحوارية على ما قدموه لنا من أدوات بسيطة وقصص واقعية حول معنى القيادة ومساعدة الآخرين. والآن ننتقل إلى محور جديد. اليوم لم يعد الشباب ينتظرون الإذن أو الشهادات كي يبدأوا، بل يستخدمون التقنيات المتاحة لهم ليبتكروا ويؤسسوا أعمالاً جديدة ويطوروا حلولاً حقيقية لمشكلات كبيرة. بفضل الهواتف الذكية والبرمجيات مفتوحة المصدر ووسائل التواصل الاجتماعي، أصبح بإمكان أي شخص أن يبني شيئاً حقيقياً ويشارك أفكاره ويصنع فرقاً سواء مع أصدقائه أو على مستوى العالم بأسره. هذه الجلسة من ركيزة التقنيات الناشئة تحمل عنوان الإبداع في جيبك. سنستمع فيها إلى مجموعة من المبدعين والمبتكرين حول كيف تساعدهم الأدوات اليومية في توسيع طموحاتهم والقيام بالمزيد ليطلقوا العنان لأفكارهم ويحركوا خيالهم الإبداعي. نرحب بخبير تقنيات الاتصال وصانع المحتوى على اليوتيوب عبد الله السابع، واليوتيوبر مؤسس قناة دوبامي كافيين ناصر العقيل، وأحمد الرديني الذي سيدير هذه الجلسة.
جيل اليوم هو جيل مشتت لا يركز ويقضي معظم وقته على أجهزته بلا أي فائدة. كلام كثير نسمعه ويتردد بين الآونة والأخرى في مختلف الأماكن، ولكن اسمحوا لي أن أختلف اختلاف تام مع هذه الجمل المستهلكة. في باحثين كبار في جامعة MIT وفي الجامعات العالمية تقول مثل هيري جنكيز وستيفن جونسون يقولون أن جيل اليوم هو أكثر جيل ممكن في تاريخ البشرية، مو لأنه أذكى ولا لأنه أحسن، لأنه يمتلك اليوم في جيبه أدوات كانت قبل كم سنة تحتاج شغل مؤسسات عشان تتم. هذا الجيل هو أول جيل في التاريخ يمتلك القدرة على إنتاج فيلم كامل وإطلاق مشروع، صناعة كتاب، تصميم علامة تجارية من جهاز واحد فقط. هذا الجيل ليس مشتتاً، هو جيل خارق جداً، ولكن يحتاج إلى توجيه في كيفية استخدام هذه القوة. ولهذا الأمر أستضيف في هذه الجلسة الأستاذ عبد الله السبع، المحرر التقني في صحيفة اندبندنت العربية وإعلامي ومؤثر في مجال التقني، والأستاذ ناصر العقيل يوتيوبر ومؤثر والرئيس التنفيذي لدوبامي كافيين. أبدأ فيك أستاذ عبد الله، مساك الله بالخير وحياك الله في هذه الجلسة.
مساك الله بالنور والسرور ويعطيكم العافية على هذه الاستضافة. أرى العديد من الوجوه المألوفة موجودة في هذه الجلسة، فأنا سعيد أني أشوفهم اليوم.
مساك الله بالخير ناصر وحياك الله في هذه الجلسة.
مساك الله بالنور، حياك الله وحيا الله الجميع. طبعا دائما ينتهون بالشكر وأنا أحب دائما أبدأ فيه، فشكرا لكل من حضر وأعطانا جزء من وقته، إن شاء الله أن تعود بالنفع ولو بشكل بسيط.
جميل. أبدأ معك أستاذ عبد الله. يمكن في لحظة سابقة من حياتك لو نسوي زوم أوت شوي، أنت ما شفت الجوال مجرد جهاز، لكنك أنت تشوفه مستقبل كامل.
صح.
وتستخدم جميع المميزات وتشرحها اليوم للناس وتطبقها. واليوم كلنا قاعدين نستخدم الأجهزة بطريقة أو بأخرى، لكن قليل اللي يعرفون استخدامات هذه الأجهزة وفوائدها وحتى مميزاتها. فبغض النظر عن شغفك في التقنية وعن شغفك في هذا المجال، وش الفرصة اللي ودك تقولها للشباب أن تراها موجودة بين يدينكم اليوم؟
طيب، يمكن احنا لو رجعنا في الزمن 20 سنة وراء، يعني شوي، أنا ما ودي أكبر نفسي، لكن هذا التاريخ يعني اللي يتحدث إنه لو رجعنا في الزمن 20 سنة وراء كانوا كل الناس ممكن راح تنتهج النهج اللي احنا انتهجناه في الاستفادة من الهواتف الذكية والتصوير وغيرها. احنا قدامنا الآن 20 سنة أخرى من التطور اللي ما حد يعرفه. احنا في بداية ثورة الذكاء الاصطناعي. ثورة الذكاء الاصطناعي راح تغير حياتنا بشكل جدا كبير. للمعلومية أنا تخصصي محاسبة، أنا متخرج من جامعة الإمام تخصص محاسبة، لكن بديت الثورة التقنية وثورة منصات التواصل الاجتماعي من بدايتها، فهذا اللي أعطاني ممكن أولوية أو إمكانية أني أنا أستفيد من هذه الثورة. فلذلك أنا أرجع وأقول لكم إحنا في بداية ثورة الذكاء الاصطناعي. من يتعلم أساسيات الذكاء الاصطناعي ومن يجيد التعامل مع أدوات الذكاء الاصطناعي هو من سيكون قائد المرحلة القادمة. فقد ما تستطيع أنك تستفيد من بداية هذه المرحلة، أنت راح تكون جدا ناجح في المرحلة المستقبلية. يعني في عام 2012 2013 الناس اللي استفادوا من ثروة التطبيقات وبداية التطبيقات وكيف أنهم استفادوا من هذه البداية وتعلموا تطوير التطبيقات هم من قادوا المرحلة لمدة 10 سنوات قادمة. فنفس الشيء الآن الناس اللي راح تبدأ وتتعلم وتستفيد من فشلها في هذا المجال هي من تقود النجاح. يمكن في 2009 2010 كان في ناس قبلنا، كانوا في ناس استفادوا من صناعة المحتوى وكانوا هم قادة مرحلة صناعة المحتوى، لكن ما استمروا، ما كان عندهم النفس الطويل انهم يستمرون في هذا المجال. فانا اقول لك من الان كشخص في بداية حياته العملية ستفشل، وافرح في فشلك، لأن الفشل هو من سيقود نجاحك في المستقبل.
جميل. أستاذ ناصر عقيل، أنت اليوم يوتيوبر وصاحب مؤسسة دوبامي كافين وليست قناة بعد الآن، وعندك اليوم شغلك الخاص اللي تشتغل فيه. ودي أعرف في وش تستخدم أجهزتك اليوم وتساعدك في مجال شغلك.
شوف أنا بصراحة الفترة الأخيرة قاعد أعاديه كثير للأمانة الجوال، بس مو بالجوال بنفسه، على قولتهم يقول لك الاستخدام للجوال هو اللي بيحكم هو شيء أنا عاديه ولا لا. فالفترة الأخيرة لأنه أخذ من وقتي كثير، شتتني كثير، وطلع عندي مفهوم البوصلة، فصرت من الناس اللي يأيد الواقع أكثر، عرفت؟ فمثلا إذا في كتاب بدل ما أقراه على كندل أروح أقراه ورقي أكثر. إذا في شغل عصف ذهني بدل ما أكتب في الملاحظات أكتب في النوت العادية، الدفتر العادي، حلو؟ بس خلينا نقول أنا من جيل التسعينات، يعني على الأقل أنا ربيت على الأشياء ذي. بس هل لا يعني ذلك ان الجوال يعتبر ثورة؟ لا بالعكس ثورة. يعني اليوم صار الوصول للمعلومة خارق جدا جدا، وهذا حصل معي كثير، خصوصا في الإعداد لما أجي أعد الحلقة أبحث عن قصة أو أبحث عن دراسة معينة، شيء مرعب. يعني يجيب لي الدراسة من مصدرها سواء كانت مؤرشفة أو غير مؤرشفة بتاريخها، أقرأ الملف نفسه وبضغطة زر بثواني. الشركة اللي احنا انشأناها ليست مؤسسة طبعا، حلو، برضو عن طريق التحول الرقمي العظيم جدا. فاليوم قاعدين نعيش ثورة، لكن هذه كلها فعلا ثورة انترنت. جميل. الثورة الحقيقية اللي قالها أبو عبد الله اللي هي الاي اي. شفت التسعينات او الثمانينات والانترنت كيف بدأ والناس قادرة تتنبأ. يعني كان في لقاء بيل جيتس، حلو، مع ديفيد ليترمان اتوقع، فكان يقول له وش تسوون بالانترنت يعني؟ فكان يقول له نسوي كذا، يقول موجود، نسوي كذا موجود. ما كان هو مستوعب وش الصورة. اتوقع الذكاء الاصطناعي بيكون بيحمل نفس الثورة هذه. المهم انه نستخدم هذا الشيء في الشيء اللي يوديني جهة بوصلتي، مو بيشتتني. هذا هو الأهم يعني.
جميل. أنت ناصر دائما تقول أن العادات الصغيرة تكون وتغير عادات كبيرة. وش العادة اللي استخدامات الشباب مع الجوالات اللي ودك كل شاب يتمنى هذه العادة في استخدام الأجهزة؟
شوف أبى أقول لك عادة معاكسة بصراحة. يعني أتوقع اليوم أي واحد فينا أول ما يصحى من النوم بيشيك على الإشعارات، تمام؟ غالبا يعني. اللي جربته أنا إني أقطع هذه العادة، ولاحظت إني أنجز كثير، وغير كذا طاقتي تكون خلال اليوم أفضل. لأن اللي أعتقده، ويعني وممكن أكون غلطان في هذه المسألة، بس أعتقد إنه استهلاك الإشعارات بداية اليوم بتستهلك الجهاز العصبي والطاقة، فخلال اليوم بيكون فيه خلينا نقول ركود وخمول وما إلى ذلك. فالعادة الأفضل إني على الأقل برامج تواصل اجتماعي اللي هي تعتبر الملهيات، الترفيه وما إلى ذلك، تكون أول 6 ساعات مغلقة. جميل. وفي خاصية الورك أو الشغل، عرفت اللي هي، فهذه بتقطع الإشعارات، ومن أجمل العادات الصراحة.
جميل.
إذا كان في عادة إيجابية فالأكيد إنه صفحة واحدة في اليوم، هذه جدا بتكون مهمة.
صفحة واحدة في اليوم بتصفحها شخص؟
صفحة واحدة في اليوم من العادات الذرية العظيمة.
وبرواية أخرى حلقة واحدة من حلقات دوبامي كافين في العادات الذرية. طيب سؤال سريع أحتاج إجابته بشكل أسرع. أبدأ معك أبو عبد الإله. أول خطوة يجب أن يتخذها أي شاب اليوم ليحول جهازه من وسيلة ترفيه إلى وسيلة إنتاج؟
أنه يبدأ يشوف مهاراته وين ممكن توديه.
لا ناصر.
لكل شيء تطبيق.
جميل. أرجع لك أبو عبد الإله. أنت اليوم وبديت الجلسة بالذكاء الاصطناعي، واليوم مع ثورة الذكاء الاصطناعي، مع كثرة أدوات الذكاء الاصطناعي، اليوم الذكاء الاصطناعي يقدر يصور، يمنتج، يشتغل وينتج حتى. وش اللي تعتقد أن التقنية لن تضيف هذا الأمر لأن هذا أمر خاص فيك؟ صح. فاليوم وش الأشياء اللي أنت ما تشاركها مع الذكاء الاصطناعي عشان ما تفقد اللي هو خلينا نقول شكلك الرقمي أو حتى شكلك في صناعة المحتوى؟
يمكن احنا دائما نحث الناس انهم يستفيدون من مميزات الذكاء الاصطناعي اللي موجوده، ودائما نقول للناس استفيدوا، استخدموا، روحوا، خلوكم تستفيدون منه، لكن اغلب الناس تقع بخطا ومشكله كبيره، الثقه الزائده في استخدام ادوات الذكاء الاصطناعي. شات جي بي تي مو دكتور نفسي عشان تستشيره، شات جي بي تي شوف في بعض الناس قامت تضحك حقيقه يعني شات جي بي تي هي وسيله تواصل، وقد يعني يلعب عليك او يتلاعب فيك حتى يعطيك معلومات زائفة، لكن بنفس الوقت أنت لازم تستخدمه، أنت لازم تكون جاهز أنك تستفيد من القدرات اللي موجودة فيه، جاهز أنك تتعلم وتاخذ معلومات جديدة منه، لكن بنفس الوقت إحنا لا نثق بشكل كامل بأدوات الذكاء الاصطناعي، وبنفس الوقت إحنا ننظر للجانب الآخر أنه في ناس تقول لا إحنا لازم نستخدمه. أي نعم استخدمه، استفيد منه، لأنه أنا حاب أعطيك معلومة أو كلمة عامية، لا تقولوا ان انبهرتوا توكم ما شفتوا شيء، حرفيا ترى احنا ما شفنا شيء من مميزات الذكاء الاصطناعي، الدراسات تقول ان احنا تونا ب5% من الشغلات اللي راح يقدمها الذكاء الاصطناعي. 5% ما تعدين حتى 5%، لكن في نقطتين انا حاب اقولها وهي نقطتين جدا مهمة. لو رجعنا في عام 2010 كيف دخل الانترنت في حياتنا، ولا واحد كان موجود هنا يتصور إلى كيف الإنترنت راح يغير حياتنا، كيف الإنترنت راح يوصلنا إلى مرحلة مختلفة من الحياة. أنشئت شركات جديدة، أنشئت تخصصات جديدة، يمكن في ناس كثيرة موجودة هنا في هذه القاعة متوظفة بوظائف أهاليهم ما كانوا يدرون أنهم راح يتوظفون في هذه الوظائف، يعني مصمم، كاتب محتوى، مبرمج، مدير أمن سبراني أو موظف أمن سبراني، هذه كلها وظائف ما كانت موجودة. ونفس الشيء ينطبق على الذكاء الاصطناعي. قدامنا 5 سنوات من التطور الرهيب، قدامنا 5 سنوات من الاختلاف الكبير. يمكن واحدة من الشغلات اللي أول شيء راح يختفي من حياتنا اختفاء الجوالات، الهواتف الذكية من حياتنا. التقارير تقول إنه خلال 5 سنوات الجوال ما راح يكون جوال أنت تستخدمه، الجوال راح يكون هو نظارة أنت ترتديها على عينك وتستخدمها وتستفيد منها. هذا المستقبل، هذا الواقع، هذا الشيء اللي احنا متجهين له، لكن احنا ما احنا متاكدين الى اي درجه احنا متجهين له. السعوديه قاعد تستثمر بشكل جدا كثير في هذا المجال، يمكن شفنا الامير محمد بن سلمان امس يتكلم عن استثمارات السعوديه في مجال الذكاء الاصطناعي، وهذا يعني ان تكون هناك وظائف اكثر في هذا المجال. السعوديه مقبله على تطور كبير في هذا المجال، السعوديه متجهه الى تبني تقنيات الذكاء الاصطناعي، فلذلك احنا نحتاج شباب شغوف وجاهز انه يكون يقود الثوره القادمه في مجال الذكاء الاصطناعي.
جميل، انت قلت الواحد ما يعتمد على الذكاء الاصطناعي وما هو بدكتور نفسي.
صح.
انا ودي اعترف شغله. انا اقول لشات جي بي تي السلام عليكم صباح الخير، شلونك ما شلونك، عشان بس يتهيئ نفسيا. فاقول له خذ نفسك بشخصيه انت افضل 5 علماء نفسيين وسايكولوجيين في العالم عشان تحل مشكلتي. ما ينفع؟
ما ينفع. لازم تعرفون معلومه انه الرئيس التنفيذي لشات جي بي تي طلع وقال في لقاء تلفزيوني بياناتكم ان كان فيها اي مشكله سيتم تسليمها للجهات المختصه والكشف عنها في يعني في ناس تخاف.
انا اول واحد اللي بيجي معي يطلع
يعني
عندنا جاهزين.
شات جي بي تي تستخدمه في العلم، شات جي بي تي تستخدمه في الوصول الى معلومه جديده، لكن ما راح يحل لك مشاكلك الاسريه، ما راح يساعدك في شغلاتك النفسيه اللي انت تحتاجها، لكن بنفس الوقت هو يقود ثوره راح يستخدمها في حياتنا. انا خوفت ناس واجد لكن هذا الواقع.
انا شات جي بي تي صار يقول لي خير الرايت خير الرايت.
لا خير الرايت، لا انت رحت شيء ثاني.
طيب بيرجع لك ابو عقيل، يمكن على نفس السؤال. اليوم العالم قاعد يعني يمشي بشكل سريع جدا، وخلينا نقول استخدامات الذكاء الاصطناعي يمكن بشكل او باخر تشجع التقليد في بناء خلينا نقول هيكل معين. لما انا اقول مثلا ابي تبني لي هيكل لصناعه بودكاست، وواحد كتب لي نفس الشيء بيطلع نفس الموضوع. وش اللي يخلي اليوم محتوى ناصر مثلا يبقى هو نفسه محتوى ناصر حتى لو باستخدام الذكاء الاصطناعي ويتميز بهذا الموضوع ويبتعد عن التقليد؟
شوف مثل ما قال ابو عبد الله، تمام، الذكاء الاصطناعي استخدامه في الوصول للمعلومه بشكل اسرع وشيء عظيم جدا، بس تحليل ما إذا المعلومة تستحق أنها تنقل أو لا تنقل، صحتها من عدم صحتها، هذا يعتمد لك أنت. بس خليني بقول لك شيء، شوف الذكاء الاصطناعي إذا دخلت في تقنيته وعرفت هو شلون يشتغل، هو تفكير منطقي بحت. يعني أنا درست برمجة، تمام، وهو جزء من الهندسة اللي درستها، وحرفيا تفكير عبارة عن احتمالات probabilities بس، عرفت شلون؟ فخلنا نقول أن الذكاء الاصطناعي يحمل التفكير المنطقي، بس في حاجتين يفتقدها تماما،
ألا وهي
التفكير العاطفي، الايموشنال انتليجنس، تمام، وهذا يشكل 95% من حياة الإنسان. وضحت؟ التعاطف. يعني أعطيك مثال بسيط عليه وسريع. ممكن تقابلني اليوم يا أحمد تقول لي أقول لك أنا كيف الحال، تقول لي الحمد لله، أقول لك لا والله ما أنت بطيب. أنت قلت لي الحمد لله تمام، بس أنا أقدر أقرأ أنك ما أنت بطيب، حتى لو كان باتصال أو حتى لو كان برسالة واتساب، خصوصا إذا أنت عزيز علي مرة. صحيح. فهذا جزء من الايموشنال انتليجنس، من العاطفة وأشياء كثيرة. فالذكاء الاصطناعي لا يملك عاطفة، والأمر الثاني لا يملك الروح، وهذا موضوع كبير ما بتطرق له. بس خلني أعطيك مثال، لو طلبنا من صحفي إنسان مبدع جدا والذكاء الاصطناعي أنهم يكتبون مقالة اليوم مهمة، عمود في جريدة، الذكاء الاصطناعي بيختار أكثر المواضيع انتشاراً واللي يتكلمون عنها اليوم وبيحطها لك في مقال جميل جدا. بس الصحفي الإنسان بيروح ديرة في شمال المملكة وبيطلع لك قصة شخص ما قد سمعنا فيه ولا نعرفه، وينقل لنا معاناته، ويخلي المقال هذا يتداول في المملكة ويمكن أبعد من ذلك. هذا الجزء الإنساني اللي ما يملكه الذكاء الاصطناعي. أعتقد كل الإنسان لو وظف هذا الشيء، العاطفة، في كل الأعمال، سواء كانت في رسم ولا في صناعة محتوى أو في كتابة تقرير أو إلى آخره، سينتصر 100% على الذكاء الاصطناعي. يستخدمه في الوصول للمعلومة وتجهيزها، والأشياء اللي يسمونها الديرتي وورك، يعني سوي لي ملف شيت، سوي لي كذا. بس الأشياء الإنسانية أتوقع بيتفوق فيها الإنسان.
جميل. سؤال سريع واحتاج إجابته بشكل أسرع. في عالم الأدوات الجاهزة، ما الذي يصنع بصمة المبدع؟ أبو عبد الإله.
استخدام الأداة بالوقت المناسب.
جميل.
لكن مو حلوة أنك تستخدمها حتى تختصر وقتك.
جميل.
ما سمعت السؤال زين.
في عالم الأدوات الجاهزة، ما الذي يصنع بصمة المبدع اليوم؟
ما أدري.
حلو. إجابة
قال
مقنعة.
لا أدري فقد أفتى. يعني منطقي إجابتك.
طيب أبو عبد الإله، اليوم أو حتى كل يوم قاعدين نشوف شباب يصنعون أفكار جديدة، محتويات جديدة وإلى آخره، وتحول إلى شيء كبير بدون معدات ولا ميزانيات. يمكن لو عندنا مثال حي عندنا أبو عقيل، أبي أعرف من وجهة نظرك وش العناصر اللي اليوم بتخلي مشروع شخص معين أو فكرة بسيطة تبدأ من جوال وتبدأ وتستمر من خلالها الأثر؟
الشغف والاستمرارية هي عنوان النجاح لأي مشروع أنت ناوي تبدأه. طول ما عندك الشغف والاستمرارية وتهذيب النفس للاستماع للنصيحة وتغيير طريقة العمل نفسه، أنت قادر أنك تستمر وتنجح. يمكن أكبر مشكلة تواجه أغلب الناس أنه يبدأ والبداية سهلة لكن ما يستمر، وهنا المشكلة الكبيرة اللي تواجه أغلب الناس. ترى في أشخاص أعلم مني، في أشخاص أفضل مني، في أشخاص أكثر مني علما ومعرفة وسعة اطلاع، لكن الجلد والاستمرار في العمل كان مو خيار بالنسبة لهم. يمكن هو يبدأ شوي بعدين يوقف، بعدين يبدأ شوي بعدين يوقف. الاستمرارية والتعلم من الخطأ هي أساس نجاح أي مشروع أنت ممكن تبدأ.
بس يمكن لأن الشباب اليوم لما يبدأ بشغلة ثم يشوف مر عليها وقت زمني معين ولا شاف منها عائد سواء كان مادي أو المشروع انتشر إلى آخره، يمكن هذه تحس بخاطره فيهون.
طيب أنا بديت 2009 في صناعة المحتوى. أول مبلغ مالي دخل علي في 2014-2015، فهذه 6 سنوات. يمكن عامل الوقت جدا مهم، انك انت تؤمن فقط بالشيء اللي انت تبغاه. لكن الان ما اقدر افصح عن الارقام، لكن قيمة صناعة المحتوى حاليا في السوق اكبر من يعني تتجاوز 100 مليون ريال سعودي او اكثر من هذا بكثير جدا. الناس اللي استمرت وبدأت هي من حصدت هذا النجاح وحصدت ثمرة الاستمرارية. استمر واعمل وتطور أثناء العمل، وعادي طبيعي أنك تتأخر. يعني أنا دائما أخاف من النجاح السريع. النجاح السريع هي شيء يخوف، ترى ما هو شيء جميل جدا. أن تصعد النجاح درجة درجة هو النجاح اللي أنت ممكن تعول عليه أنك تستفيد وتتراكم عندك الخبرات ولا تخطئ.
جميل. ناصر، اليوم الفرص كثيرة جدا. كيف يقدر الشاب اليوم يحدد جودة الفكرة؟ هل هي فكرة جيدة قابلة للتطبيق بالأدوات الموجودة اللي بين يدينا، أو أنها فكرة سيئة لابد أن تندثر؟ هل في معيار؟
شوف، هذا الصدق موضوع نسبي، يعني فعلا تختلف الفكرة على حسب السياق وعلى حسب الشخص وعلى حسب المستقبل. جميل. بس خلني أقول، لو أنا اللي مطروح لي هذا السؤال أنا بشكل مباشر وكيف أنا بختار فكرة، فغالبا بختار الفكرة اللي أعتقد أن فيها لها أثر في حياة الشخص اللي بيسمعها. جميل. مع أن عندي شغف في معرفة كل علم لا ينفع زين، لكن لما أجي أنقل معلومة أحاول أحرص أنها تكون لها تطبيق واقعي على حياتها. ممكن تضبط معه، ممكن ما تضبط، بس المهم أنها تكون مؤثرة وتصنع تغيير جيد في حياته. هذا أعتقد أنه المعيار اللي احنا ماشيين عليه، يعني أنه لازم تكون تصنع أثر.
جميل. أبو عبد الإله، أنت قبل شوي ذكرت أن شات جي بي تي أو الذكاء الاصطناعي شفنا بس منه 5%.
صح.
بشكل سريع، وش الابتكارات المستقبلية اللي بتكون موجودة والتقنيات المستقبلية اللي أنت متحمس لها وتعتقد أنها بتضيف قيمة عالية في حياة الأشخاص، سواء في صناعة المحتوى والجوانب المهنية أو الجوانب الشخصية؟
أتوقع أن التقنيات الملبوسة راح تغير حياتنا بطريقة أو بأخرى. التقنيات الملبوسة يعني الشيء اللي تلبسه، التقنية اللي تلبسها.
حلو. يعني أعتقد ملبوسة كلنا عندنا.
اي لا لا يا جماعة،
يجيني جني AI.
لا جني AI.
طيب ليش تعتقد ان
التقنيات الملبوسة هي راح تغير حياتنا بطريقة او باخرى؟ زي ما الساعات الذكية بدأت تدخل، النظارات الذكية بدأت تدخل، كلها هذه شغلات هي المستقبل. شئنا ام ابينا هي المستقبل في المرحلة القادمة، لأن الذكاء الاصطناعي هو ما راح يوصل إلى مرحلة هو ما راح يطلب منك شيء أو تتواصل معه، هو ممكن يساعدك في حياتك ويكون موجود بطريقة أنت تلبسها. أنا متفائل كثير بفكرة جوني إيف اللي هو قاعد يشتغل عليها حالياً مع اوبن AI، إنه يكون عنده جهاز ملبوس ذكاء اصطناعي يتفاعل فيها، فهذه واحدة من الشغلات اللي إحنا متفائلين فيها بشكل كبير في المستقبل.
جميل. ناصر العقيل، شيء واحد تقول للشباب ابدأوا به اليوم من جوالاتكم أو من أجهزتكم وبشكل بسيط جدا، لأنه بيصنع لكم مستقبل مختلف.
شوف، أنا من الناس اللي شبيحة قراءة حرفيا.
غريبة.
إيه لا ضروري. بقول لك شيء، لأنها هي صنعت فرق فيني. وكنت أقول يا ليتني عارفها من قبل. زين. وللأسف إن إحنا أمة تقرأ. جميل. أنا أعتقد إنه واقعك اللي أنت تعيشه منبعه الأول بعد الأقدار طبعاً ومشيئة الله هو الأفكار. فاللي بتحمل أفكارك سينعكس في الواقع. تحسين جودة الأفكار لها بوابات كثيرة، أعتقد أن أجملها هو الكتب. هذا والله أعلم عشان ما نطول عليك.
جميل. أبو عبد الإله، ودي تختم بنصيحة
في كلمة أخيرة بسيطة جدا أنا حاب أختم فيها هذه الجلسة. أول شيء أنا سعيد جدا بتواجدي معاكم اليوم، سعيد جدا أن أنا موجود معاكم في مسك. سعيد أني أقول كلمة أخيرة. دائما أؤمن بالفكرة اللي موجودة عندك، أؤمن أنك أنت قادر تغير، قادر تصنع شيء تغير في حياتك أو تغير في حياة الناس اللي حولك. يوم بدأت أنا كانوا الناس اللي يتابعوني أو الناس اللي يستفيدون من المحتوى اللي موجود لا يتجاوزون 3 أشخاص إلى 10 أشخاص. اليوم شهريا 100 مليون مستخدم حول العالم. الفكرة دائما أن تؤمن بنفسك، تؤمن أنك قادر تغير، تؤمن أنك قادر تتعلم وتكتسب مهارات جديدة، وتؤمن أن الشخص البسيط اللي موجود في شرق الرياض قادر أنه يغير حياة أشخاص مختلفين حول العالم بفكرة بسيطة هو بناها، بفكرة بسيطة هو آمن فيها. واستفد من نصائح الناس، استفد من الناس اللي جاية وتنصحك، ولا تلتفت للمحبطين. يعطيكم العافية.
جميل. ناصر العقيل، كلمة أخيرة تختم فيها هذه الجلسة؟
والله بختم كلمة واحدة. شكرا من أعماق القلب. بس
كل يوم قاعدين نكتشف أن الإبداع ما عاد يحتاج مكان معين ولا معدات كبيرة، صار يبدأ من فكرة، من لحظة، ومن جهاز بسيط موجود بين يديك. الفرق الحقيقي مش في الأدوات، الفرق في الشخص اللي يقرر أنه يبدأ حتى لو كانت البداية صغيرة. اليوم سمعنا كلام ملهم تجارب تلهم وتفتح عيوننا على فرص قريبة جدا وأقرب حتى مما نتخيل. أتمنى أن أول خطوة تسوونها بعد هذه الجلسة هي تكون خطوة لصناعة أثر جديد. إحنا ما هو بجيل ناقص أدوات، إحنا جيل مكتمل بالفرص ومكتظ بالأدوات، بس محتاج خطوة أولى لصناعة الأثر. شكرا لضيوفي الكرام، شكرا أستاذ عبد الله سبع، شكرا أستاذ ناصر عقيل. كنت معكم أنا أحمد رديني في تقديم هذه الجلسة. إلى أن نلقاكم في جلسات أخرى، محافل أخرى، في أمان الله. الله يخليك يا حبيبي.
يعطيكم العافية جميعاً. Huge thank you to عبد الله السبع، ناصر العقيل وأحمد الرديني على هذه الجلسة. Ladies and gentlemen, now let's shift to a new form of influence, Tom Prester-Werner and Louise Mabulo.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope everyone's still wide awake. We have an incredible fireside chat happening, and Tom, thank you so much for joining us this evening. So I want to dive right into our questions. We have 10 minutes to get into the meat of things. When you look back at your early days before GitHub, what was the moment that you first felt, I can build something that others will actually use?
Well, I grew up in a small town in Iowa and ended up going to college on the West Coast of the United States. And out there, I met a programming community and started to really meet people that were working on open source projects, which made me really excited to do the same. And so I found a project around parsing date times. So if you wanted to say that you're going to have a meeting tomorrow or next Tuesday, being able to parse those sentences and turn them into actual dates and times. And there was no library for this in Ruby, the programming language that I was using at the time. And so I sat down and I figured out how to write it, and I wrote it, and I started talking about it at the Ruby, the programming meetup group that I was attending, and people really enjoyed it. And then a broader set of people started using it, and it really got me some attention within the programming community. And that was really my first step into becoming a little more impactful and prominent in the programming ecosystem, and it just felt amazing. And that opportunity, I think, is open to really anybody.
That's incredible, and this was early in your career years ago. But let's go back to today. So what are you currently working on now?
So my main project right now is I'm working on another startup, which is very cool, and it's called 180 Studios. And this is a set of tools that span both digital and physical spaces. On the digital side, I'm building version control and collaboration. Again, GitHub is that for software. But what you'll find is that GitHub is not very good at doing those things for assets outside of software. So think gaming, film, architecture, design, photography, music. Where do people that are doing those activities go to do collaboration with their teams, to work on those files, to branch off into their own spaces, to do experimental work, to merge that back into the main project, and to have discussions with all that work? And in the age of AI, how do you work with agents that you've requested to do work for you? Where do they propose those changes back to you? How do you review them and continue the conversation and merge them back in? So I'm building GitHub again, but for a different audience. And then on the physical spaces side, we have a large building in central London called 180 Strand, where it's a hub for the creative community. Everybody in London knows 180 Strand. It's an amazing building, an amazing experience, and a community of people that come together around creativity. And we're combining all of these collaborative experiences across digital and physical, and we intend to bring the 180 Strand experience that we have in central London right now to other places in the world, including right here in Misk City. So we're working on a partnership with Misk City right now, and you'll hear more about that tomorrow, hopefully. So I'm working on that. I also do, yes, thank you. I also am an investor. I'm a general partner in PWV. We invest in early stage technology companies leading pre-seed and seed rounds. So I kind of have two hats. I love technology. I love builders. I love anyone who's building things.
That's incredible because GitHub paved the way for so many young people in tech and coding. So today a teenager can publish code that the whole world uses. What makes open source such a powerful playground for young creators, and how can they use it wisely?
Well, just like my story, I think the power of open source is that there are no barriers. There's no one that can tell you that you can't go and build open source. And so the lack of needing permission, I think that's the most powerful aspect. If you have a computer and you have access to the internet, you can learn, you can start writing open source, you can find gaps in the ecosystem, or you can just do your take on a given project. Something that's really easy to start out with is to write your own blog engine. So I wrote a blog engine called Jekyll that probably millions of websites use today because I had an idea, I put it out there, people liked it and started using it. And really you can be anyone from anywhere, and if you learn the right things and you engage with the right systems, and you can go on GitHub and you can put the code on GitHub and start evangelizing it around the world. You can then get invited to conferences where you can speak about the open source that you're working on. Or if you just want to contribute to an existing open source project, you can gain prominence in that way as well. So it's really, to me, it's a door opener. And it doesn't matter where you're from, what you look like, what your background is, how old you are. Open source is a level playing field for everybody. And that, I think, is pretty unique in the world. And that's its great strength.
That's incredible. It creates equity. It's a step up for a lot of young people. And something you mentioned is that, young people aren't really waiting for permission anymore or waiting for their turn. They can go out and do something immediately with the technology in their hands. And for you in your own development, so if Tom 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 were software releases, what breaking change in your life taught you the most? And how can youth learn to ship even when they're afraid of failing?
I think big lessons for me, one was to figure out how to network, how to meet people, how to be social. That was not my strong suit when I was in high school. And there was a lot of learning there. So I think Tom 1.0 was just reading physics books, at home and doing homework. Tom 2.0 was in college, where I really started to meet people and understand what it means to become a part of a group and to seize opportunities and then start writing software and attend meetups. And then Tom 3.0, I think, is the realization that if you want to build big things, you need to become excellent at teamwork. You need to identify who are the best builders in the room. And you need to learn and be willing to learn any skill that is necessary to make that happen. So to become an entrepreneur is really about not being above anything. You do whatever it takes to get the job done.
And I'd like you to complete the sentence for the audience here today. In the next 10 years, the most important tools in tech will be created by young people who, ...
Young people who build projects, I'd say. And by that I mean, and especially in the era of generative AI systems today, LLMs, they can do really well the things that look like tasks. Like, here's a predefined thing that I want you to go do that thing. A lot of that is going to be done, taken care of. You won't have to do that anymore. But what isn't done is collecting all of those tasks together into something that is greater than the sum of the parts. So I think young people today need to learn things like project management skills, teamwork skills, because in the future you'll be working with these agentic systems and coordinating them, adding in both AI and human players into your system. And the best way to differentiate from what is possible from just a pure AI perspective is to build projects, something that is much higher level than a set of tasks. So I'd say focus on building something of value for real people that is larger than just task work.
And that's a really good pathway forward for young people who are going into the tech industry or trying to navigate their way or figure out what their careers are. What is one last, say, tweet-sized piece of advice that you would give to young people that want to get into a tech career or are looking to build systems like you did?
I'll say you get good at what you practice. So if you want to be good at building, then go build. Build anything. Build any idea that you have. And yeah, it will probably fail, and I built a lot of things that failed that nobody cares about. I found them useful, I experimented with them, I put them out in the world, and literally nobody cared, right? But that's fine because I was solving my own problem and I was getting experience building things. And the way that you get good at building is to build. So whatever it is that you choose in life that you want to do, go do that thing and do it over and over and do it badly at first, and then do it a little bit better, and then do it a little bit better, until eventually there's nobody better in the world than you at doing that thing.
That's a really incredible pathway forward and some really good advice from me. I think we have one last question that I can squeeze in. Tech is a very kind of fixed step process. So when you feel stuck or bored, what's the pattern break that gets your brain creative again?
I think for me it's forcing myself to be a little bit bored. Like putting my phone away, getting away from the TV, maybe go out for a walk, and just start thinking about problems or noticing problems or gaps in the world, and then writing those down and keeping a journal of that. And where ideas come from is the collision of different things that come together and expand sort of the adjacent possible. Like what is next? What is next to what we can do right now? Call that the adjacent possible and exploring that. So really just being bored, and a lot of the ideas I've had come from laying in bed and staring at the ceiling. So do more of that.
Letting your mind wander. I love this, and I feel like that my takeaway is that I could be a bridge builder between the social tasks, the teamwork, the technology, and it gives me a good roadmap as someone who's not in the tech industry of what to do and how to step forward if I wanted to build a project or become someone like you someday. Thank you so much for your time, Tom. I appreciated this conversation. It was action-packed and blow by blow.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Tom. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can surmise that by saying it's all about one thing in 2 words: open source. That was very inspiring. I wish I knew coding. If I did, I'd go on GitHub and I'd upload information too. And you know what I took away from that? It doesn't matter what skin color, what language you speak, where you are from the world. It's true. When it comes to programming and computer code, it doesn't care about your background. It's absolutely agnostic. You like that too? Yes. Well, if you like that, you're going to love what we have next. And of course, it's something that we all engage in every single night, and it is sleep. What am I talking about? I'm about to tell you more. Our next unfiltered discussion under the wellness and sports pillar is called Sleepwalk to Success. Everyone knows teenagers love to sleep through their alarm, but new science shows that early mornings clash with their natural body clocks, affecting scores, mood, and relationships. What if we started viewing sleep as a performance tool and not as an obstacle? Imagine schools and workplaces designed around biology rather than bells. To dive into how rest can unlock our full potential and how young people are hacking their hibernation for success, please welcome sleep and health consultant Thomas Coleman.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. It's late. The day is nearly finished. I'm sure you're tired. If you fall asleep for the sleep talk, it's a win-win for me, right? It's fine. You should be spending about 36% of your lives asleep. And that's more time dedicated to one activity in human biology than any other. But it seems you don't have time. Many people I work with now, we're very busy. We are at near full capacity, but nowhere near our full potential. And that's the work that I do. For busy people who don't have time, their energy levels are low, and our sense of presence. We all know those people who, as you speak to them, take out their phone, say, yeah, I'm listening. No, you're not. So when you give someone your full attention, It's very valuable, both in the workplace and indeed at home as well. So the question is, why is this happening? These are symptoms of an underlying problem, and these are very valuable currencies. Modern living has caused a lot of difficulty. We are not using our bodies for their intended purpose. We spend much time now sitting down doing this. We are designed to move, to push, to pull, to connect with nature and to connect with other people. Our messaging systems are overstimulated with notifications 24/7. We are connected globally. We are sending emails at night, and our sleep is suffering. And we have the mind that cannot let go of the day, the restless mind. And people then will maybe scroll or do different things. So what can we do? How can we bring it back? I am a health scientist. I'm all about aligning our activity with our biology. So we must talk about sleep and circadian rhythm. So what is this word circadian? What does it mean? Circa, approximately, and dian, a day. Everything in human physiology is governed by our circadian rhythm. So there are good times to lean into the day and work, and there are times when we should rest. People ask me all the time about, well, how much sleep should I be getting? And light sleep and deep sleep. So I want to explain to you today how you should be planning your recovery, both personally and professionally, because high performance is not about pushing harder. It's about implementing strategies for recovery. So let me delve into a 90-minute sleep cycle. Stage 1 sleep, it's very light. Many people don't realize they're in stage 1. I hope none of you are in stage 1 sleep now. Stage 2, we start to fall deeper into sleep. Stage 3 is very deep sleep. You love that stuff, don't you? My Fitbit's telling me I'm only getting 20 minutes deep sleep. How do I get more deep sleep? Your brain will regulate how much you need, and then you dream. Now, dreaming, people, is especially important. And that's light sleep. In your first cycle, you dream for 5 minutes. In your last cycle, you dream for 1 hour. So here's the key learning from this. Light sleep and deep sleep are equally important for your health. All of the psychological resetting, restoration happens in light sleep. Lymphatic drainage, your brain cleans itself while you sleep, and all of that is happening in light sleep. Does anyone nap? Do you nap? Can I get a show of hands? Oh, wonderful. How long do you nap for? 7 hours. Yes, if you nap, a short nap, don't go over 30 minutes or maybe a full cycle. It depends. But there is great value in sleep and indeed in light sleep. If we talk about the brain and cognition, and for young people especially, it's very, very important. Your ability to recall information increases by 20 to 40% if you've had a good night's sleep. You are 33% more likely to solve complex problems after sleep. And if stress does come about, you're 60% less likely to go into that amygdala, that stress response. And guess what? The high performers know this. They protect their sleep because they know that their performance depends on it. So I have worked with Olympic athletes, I've worked with world champions, I've worked with CEOs, I've consulted for police forces, for medical professionals, and they all know that the same thing. That renewal comes about. Renewal is the fuel for achievement. And they protect their sleep. So how can you protect your sleep? I'm going to give you a framework, a roadmap. Now, I have worked individually with people, not so much now, but when people did come to me with sleep issues, I found they had very stressful lives. What can you do? Get as much light exposure. You are diurnal, not nocturnal, so we want lots of activity, and we get lots of light. That increases melatonin production. Watch the coffee, the caffeine into your beautiful coffee from Saudi Arabia. Delicious, but be careful. Certain foods will help sleep. Certain foods contain melatonin. And then the routine. We're great with children. We understand with children it's about winding them down. So they have a lovely routine of food, bath, or a shower, pajamas, brush the teeth, bedtime story, and sleep. Do you have that routine? Anybody reading you a bedtime story? No. We arrive in bed like, whoa, what a day. What day is today? 3 people said to me today, what day is today? Yeah? We are completely overstimulated. Make sure your sleep environment is right and you have the air conditioning working. Another area that causes huge difficulty with sleep is this racing mind. Now we have stress, we have anxiety, and we have racing mind. The same systems that govern stress and control stress also control sleep. So what I would encourage you to do is build a toolkit to help you manage your stress levels. Anxiety is very common. The University of Cambridge tell us that we all have anxiety. Actually, there's only one group of people who don't have any anxiety whatsoever. Psychopaths. So if you have anxiety, good news, you're not a psychopath. Apparently Wall Street loved the psychopaths, so you can direct them over there, okay? Anxiety is linked to self-care. Imagine that. What did you do today that was good for you? So those are questions to consider. Now, let's talk about the tools. I have worked with elite professionals. I have worked with technology designed for fighter pilots to analyze mental fatigue. And I've worked with special forces in Ireland. And all across the world, they use the same techniques because in the very busy lives that we have now, the demands don't stop. So what can you do? You build capacity for stress, and you do it using tools like exercise, like cold water. Because when we go into fight or flight stress response, your cognitive function drops by 80%. Your ability to think goes out the window. You can actually train this. So this is a toolkit that I would encourage you to develop. I'm a scientist. I'm not into fluffy concepts. Let's do a little breath work together. So here's a valuable tool if you do find yourself in that fight or flight stress response. This is the fastest scientific method to reduce stress. It's something that we do naturally, and it's called the physiological sigh. It's a double inhale through the nose, a deep breath, and then a long, slow exhale where you blow it out. And this works every time because it's not based on psychology. When has calm down ever worked? Have you told your husband or wife to calm down recently? It has the opposite effect in my experience, right? So these are tools, and that's called stress inoculation. We can put ourselves in controlled environments and train ourselves to operate very well in those environments. We have something else called attention restoration theory. And what this is removing yourself from that cognitive, very busy work that you do and going into nature for 5, 10, 15 minutes. So as a child, maybe you played outside in the sand or the grass or the water. And in that space, that's where you rested cognitively. And what scientists have found is that completely resets your cognitive capacity. There's some very interesting research from a guy called Anders Ericsson, where he worked with all of these elite athletes, chess grandmasters, high performers. And he found that all of them trained in a very specific way. They worked in bouts of 90 minutes with a 15-minute cognitive break. They were less likely to burn out and they were far more productive. So again, if we look at the workplace and how we are working, we have to align or maybe change that or have that conversation with someone. We have to understand the power of pause. Now, you will please excuse my pronunciation, the tawazan, balance, harmony. And that comes about from taking rest and is critical in maintaining performance. The role of technology, we've seen the rise of AI and how powerful and useful that can be. But I would say to you that we have to optimize the human. Let's not forget the human, because AI will become distributed equally, and it's the human potential that we need to focus on. I talk about failure a lot because we will implement strategies, we will try, and we will fail, and that's inevitable. I've had a lot of success in my life. I've had a lot of failure. There's a clear link with sleep. And the link is this. When the brain learns something new, neuroplasticity, it's wired in at night. Now, the mechanism that's necessary for neuroplasticity to happen is repeated failure. Isn't that wonderful? That we actually must fail several times before the brain learns. When I started my career as a speaker many years ago, I done a talk in my hometown. I'm from the west of Ireland. And I done a talk, I advertised, I done posters, I told my friends, come to my talk. And the evening came for my talk. And the guy said, how many chairs will I put out? I said, put out 50 chairs. And how many people came? 2. It felt like a horrible failure, but I learned from that. Here I am today in this amazing venue in front of these amazing people giving a talk to you. So, thank you. We will all encounter failure, people. It's how we deal with that failure. I think that conversation is very important, especially for our youth. I like to finish by giving you an action plan, because you cannot think your way into better living. You must live your way into better thinking. And many of us lay awake at night over-analyzing. We cannot shut down the thinking. Maybe you're worried about health, maybe you're worried about whatever it may be, but thinking more maybe is not the solution. We take action. And what does that look like? Move more. People tell me I've no time for exercise, and I say, let me see your phone. Your screen time is up this week by 12%, right? You do have time. You do have time. Certain foods will help. Focus on what you can control. We like to focus on other variables, but all of high performers I've worked with focus on what they can control. That's really important. And your thought process. What's your thought process around the nature of the problem? Maybe there's a different solution. Sleep is about letting go. Sleep is the ultimate act of letting go of the cares of the world and the worries and the stresses, and of self-care. So what I would say to all of the people here, all of you, is go forward with clarity and act with purpose. And if you're looking after your sleep very well, you can rest assured that the future is bright and the future is yours. Shukran. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are. The end of day number 1, and what a day it has been. From music and mental maths to bold and courageous ideas and conversations. And this is just day number 1. Tomorrow we're back here again. Get some rest, and we'll see you all tomorrow. And on behalf of myself and the rest of the team, have a great night, and see you guys tomorrow. Good night, everybody.